Yesterday, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, valiantly vows not to quit as he takes responsibility for Labour's abysmal local council Starmageddon.
I think there is a real threat that Nigel Farage could become Prime Minister, but that will be determined by whether or not this government can deliver the change the British public want to see.
Yeah, Labour Minister Steve Reid admits there is a possibility that Nigel Farage will become the next Prime Minister as Labour faces a local wipeout across England. So far, the Labour Party has lost an astonishing 58% of the seats it's been trying to defend. Hey, at one point last night, it was 83. With more than 50 of the 136 council results in so far, the party appears to be losing grip of its historic Labour heartlands. And there's further misery for the Prime Minister as the number of migrants who have crossed the Channel by small boat surpasses the grim milestone of 200,000 arrivals since 2018. A bad news day somehow just got worse for Keir Starmer. And meanwhile, Nigel Farage says the best is yet to come, and Zia Youssef claims the Tory party is dead.
Labour are being wiped out by reform in many of their most traditional areas, and what you're going to see later on today is the Conservative Party being wiped out in their heartlands like Essex.
Well, we've got some huge seats to come ahead, an action-packed show all the way through until 6 p.m. Reform UK are hoping to take further control throughout the rest of the afternoon.
This is unique, truly unique. But elsewhere in the West Midlands, Reform have absolutely smashed it. From Newcastle under Lyme to Tamworth to Nuneaton, Cannock, Dudley, it's remarkable.
Meanwhile, the battle rages north of the border. Reform UK are also hopeful in Scotland, as the Scottish Reform leader Malcolm Offord says he fought a Holyrood election to become Scotland's First Minister.
I'm in it to win it, but at the end of the day, you know, we has, as I say, this has been a heartland for the SNP, so it's, you know, this is a real challenge.
He said Conservatives are coming back, and here we are.
Putting on a brave face there, but it's been a mixed night at best, you might say, for Kemi Badenoch's Conservative Party, losing over 220 council seats thus far, but they have taken Westminster City Council back from Labour.
He's doing a fantastic job. He's led our party to become the largest it has ever been in the party's history. I love working side by side with Ed. We make a strong leadership team, but he is the right person to lead us into the next election.
Brace yourselves for more lycra and paddle boards, because the Liberal Democrats are up 29 council seats and celebrate as they head for their 8th set of local election gains in a row.
That I know Zoe Garbett as Mayor of Hackney, and in fact so many people who run councils or indeed Green councillors will be holding the government to account from a local level to say it's outrageous that decades of austerity have stripped councils of funding.
Is London calling for the Green Party, because those results start to roll in throughout today's show. Zach Polanski's Green Party has had a huge victory in London with its candidate elected Mayor of Hackney ousting Labour. Reaction to all of this and much, much more throughout another epic action-packed show. What a show it's going to be today. What a night it's been already. Thank you for those who stuck with us all through the night. I have 5 hours sleep and a bag of Monster Munch. What else do you need? I'm back in the saddle. What a show we have ahead. All eyes on key areas like Thurrock, like Sunderland. It's been Labour since the dawn of time. Sunderland, the mining heartlands, the working class engine of Britain. Could it about to be turned turquoise? And then all eyes on London, waiting for that green wave to come. Well, all eyes on places like Hackney at 5 o'clock. Later on, we've got Lambeth, Newham, Southwark. These are all the areas the Green Party has its eye on. But there's a huge amount of seats to come in, and the day is going to get, I predict heartily, much, much worse for Sir Keir Starmer, let alone 200,000 illegal immigrants arriving on our shores. A total Starmageddon, a day to forget. Now, here's where we are at currently. This is where we're at 3 o'clock, the day after the public took to the polls. Counting is still underway across the country, but for councils, this is the picture. You can see on your screens there, total councils for the Labour Party, 16, but they've lost 12. Terrible. Conservatives, they're on 6, down 3. Reform Party on 4, up 4. Of course, they were defending no areas at all. Liberal Democrats on 9, holding 8, putting 1 on, a total of 9. No overall control, as Tom Holt has been so adeptly pointing out. A pattern here, because a lot of these councils only had 1/3 of the seats up. Reform were taking huge chunks of them, but unable to get overall control because 2/3 already locked in. 37 no overall controls, and that's gone up 10. Absolutely, we are seeing a reset of British politics. And across the board, this is how it's looking for councillors. So I'm joined in the studio now by GBNews' political editor Chris Hope. He also grabbed a few hours sleep. And GBNews' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. These are the days we live for as political commentators. Chris Hope, what a night to forget it's been for Sir Keir Starmer, a nightmare on Downing Street. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage practically doing cartwheels. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is it's a complete nightmare for Labour. Nigel Farage saying we'll witness a historic change in British politics. Forget left-right, there's no more left-right. We heard the same from Zach Palancy, these two challenger parties, the Greens and Reform UK, with only a handful of MPs between them, are saying to the two main parties, your time is over, we're on the march. Now, whether this translates into general election, we are nowhere near that happening. That is some time away. The focus right now, though, for political journalists is what happens next with the Prime Minister. He's made clear he won't go anywhere. He's told in an interview this morning around 8 a.m. that he's not leaving. He's going to. He feels he should. We've had enough of going through repeated Prime Ministers. Of course, that happened before with the Tory Party, and he's going to keep going and push on through this. Whether that is enough, though, whether him saying that is enough, because already those on the left of the party, John McDonnell and others, are saying it's time he set out a timetable for leaving office. Theresa May did that, and you'll very soon become a dead duck. So that's why he's not doing that. But we're looking at some amazing results in your 3-hour show, Martin.
Yes.
Sunderland, 4 o'clock. Reform could win that over Labour.
That'd be
Islington.
That'd be huge.
Islington, imminent. Greens could take that from Labour. That would be extraordinary.
Jeremy Corbyn's backyard.
The question, Tunbridge Wells, Lib Dems must hold on to that. Will the Tories have a go at that? Brent, Labour must hold Brent. Hackney.
I suspect they won't. I suspect that'll go Green.
And Hackney, 5 o'clock.
Hackney will go Green. They've got a mayor.
Almost certainly. And then Lib Dems, can they hold on to St Albans, where they made a lot of ground over the past decade or so?
Nigel Nelson, quick nibble from you before we get in. Let's start, really. It's been a nightmare not only for Keir Starmer, but his potential replacements. Angela Rayner, 16 out of 17 council seats in Thameside up there, going to Reform. They've held that since Maggie Thatcher was the Prime Minister, 1979. Disastrous. Lisa Nandy in Wigan, obliterated, 22 seats, all went from Labour to Reform. Andy Burnham losing in his backyard. Jonathan Reynolds getting battered. Left, right and centre, even the replacements of Sir Keir Starmer are getting a shoeing.
Yeah, I mean, it is really bad, and it's obviously going to get worse as we go on. The nearer it gets to 2,000 losses, the worse it gets for Keir Starmer. I think at the moment we have to let the dust settle, because for Labour MPs, it's actually quite emotional. They've lost friends, not just their councils or control of their councils, and so we'll have to see how they react over the weekend. The big problem about getting rid of Keir Starmer at the moment is there's no Andy Burnham. It's possible that MPs could coalesce around Andy Burnham. He's not in the Commons, and the last thing you now want is a new leader, and then Andy Burnham comes in and takes over.
Here's my question to both of you. Is there any such thing as a safe seat? Could Andy Burnham get any safe seat? There'd be a by-election against him. They'd throw the kitchen sink at it, every single party, just to try and annihilate Labour Party.
That is a great question.
Is there a way back?
It would become a by-election referendum on the government, and imagine the effort the Reform would put to that. I mean, that's why I think it's hard to see it. But look at the PM saying, I'm not going to walk away from that and plunge the country into chaos. And, of course, Andy Burnham not being an MP, would he really win a by-election and become PM straight away? No, he couldn't. So the supporters of Burnham want to see the PM carry on for a year or so at least.
I honestly think they're in a situation now where there's no such thing as a safe Labour seat, and therefore I think Burnham's locked out. So much to discuss. Let's get now to our next guest. I'm delighted to speak with the Labour candidates on East Sussex County Council elections. Paul Richards. Paul, great friend of the show. And may I say, it's fabulous to see you standing up and being counted. I admire anybody with the guts to stand up for public office. Absolutely. But what's the picture down there? I believe you're approaching your count. Are you hopeful?
I'm going to get a result any minute. It's not going to be a great result for Labour down here. The Lib Dems have retained most of the seats. The Tories are doing badly. Reform are doing well, but they haven't broken through. There are not many Labour votes down in East Sussex. But anyway, like you say, you stood for office as well. I know, it's good to go out and talk to people and test your ideas against the experience of real folk on doorsteps, isn't it? So that's why I'm here doing that.
Paul Richards, without getting me in trouble, what kind of things have people been saying to you on the doorsteps about your leader, Sir Keir Starmer? He's gone down like a cup of cold sick, I'm assuming.
Well, some people are very angry about Keir Starmer. Other people are very angry about potholes. Some people are concerned about national issues. Some people are really concerned about their next-door neighbours. And you'll know from knocking on hundreds of doors, you get a whole mix of different things, myriad different issues. I think, though, these results are terrible for Labour across the country. But if you think the answer is to launch into a leadership contest, it's absolutely balmy. And I think it's quite telling, and, you'll know this, that so few Labour MPs have actually come out today and said, oh, it's time for a change of leader, despite these terrible results, because that would be even worse. And I just think, what we have to listen to is people's genuine policy concerns.
Yeah, but Paul, you know as well as I know, mate, if you're a Labour Party MP today, you want to hide in the wardrobe.
Well, there was all this talk, 2 days ago of letters and men in grey suits and forcing him out and the timetable and Ed Miliband had said this and that. None of that is happening. It's not unravelling. We've taken it on the chin, and I think what you'll see over the weekend now is going to be a reshuffle and refresh the government. But what you're not going to see is this sort of forcing out defenestration of the Prime Minister like the Tories used to have as their stock-in-trade response to every defeat, because that's not what the public is telling us. And, to answer your earlier question, actually, Martin, some people, like I said, very angry about Starmer. Some said, no, the last thing we need is for him to go. We want him to finish the job, stay in post, bit of stability, don't spook the bond markets. And in time of war, we need somebody just at the helm. So, it does cut both ways, which is why I think most Labour MPs, and I would implore them actually, is to stay calm.
OK, Paul Richards, well, best of luck down there on the coast. I suspect you might need it. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. To my next guest now, I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Hadwin, a newly elected councillor on Suffolk County Council. Michael, well done. Tell us about the battle.
Cheers, Martin. Thank you. So, we've just finished our count here in Lowestoft, and it has been quite a day. We managed in Suffolk Coastal alone to win 7 of the 9 divisions, and this is pure heartland Tory territory. And now you're seeing turquoise all along the coast. And these results are showing one simple thing, that the old parties are done. People are fed up with the messaging from Sir Keir Starmer, from Kemi Badenoch, and they realise that if they want their communities to improve, there is only one party that can do that, and that is reform.
There's been a lot of talk about Kemi Badenoch, the Badenoch bounce. They're putting on a brave face at Tory HQ today. That's what they must do. They had good nibbles in Wandsworth, in Westminster, in central London. But down there on the coast, people are telling you they just want change.
Yeah, so what's happened is that change message that Labour used at the general election and failed to deliver on, people still want to follow that change message. So now what we're seeing is people coming forward and saying, no, let's get that change. Reform UK is the party that can deliver it. There's lots of situations now where the Tories have gone from the administration to barely even one of the biggest parties. The Greens are now the opposition against us. And we, on Monday, will be taking up our new administration in Suffolk.
Well, it's certainly all change, and now all eyes next on Norfolk. Another tsunami of turquoise in Essex. That eastern coastal rump down there, it's all changed. Thank you very much for joining us, Michael. Well done to you and your team. I say it to every party, irrespective of their political stripes. It takes guts to stand up in politics. I've got huge admiration for anybody who does it. Now let's get straight to Mark White, our man down in Dover. Mark White, thank you very much for hanging on for a hit with me. Like our Admiral Nelson on the coast, you never sleep. A beady eye on the dinghies coming in, and a bad news day just got even worse for Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah, absolutely. We had 3 attempts today, one from Dunkirk with the boat that was slashed on the beach. Now, interestingly, that's the second time in a week that the French police appear to have got a bit more robust, gone off and slashed a boat in shallow water. And then there was another boat that set off further down towards the Boulogne end, but it didn't make it very far at all. But then we got that 7:30 launch from a beach again near Dunkirk, where just after 11 o'clock this morning the boat was intercepted and the Border Force vessel Ranger arrived here at Dover Harbour with 70 migrants on board. And by our calculation, Martin, that takes the total number of migrants who have arrived illegally across the English Channel since 2018 to 200,013. Now, Alp Mehmet from Migration Watch, a great friend of the channel, has responded to the news that we broke earlier. He said that his calculations, the calculations of Migration Watch, show that there has been a net cost to the British taxpayer of £65 billion because a direct cost attributed to the small boat crisis since the first of those migrants arrived on our shores back in 2018, Martin.
£5 billion, and that's just the financial cost, let alone the cultural cost, let alone the cost to communities forced to accommodate these young men. No vote, no veto, no voice, no chance to stop this. Mark White, they've finally been springing into action on the beaches, the gendarmes slashing boats. No doubt Sir Keir Starmer's bunged him a nice pay rise to try and stop this before the local election results came in. But on the day that Keir Starmer is facing this Starmageddon politically, this is just a fresh nightmare for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what the Labour government may or may not have done with regard to the election that's just passed, but we know, of course, that just in the last couple of weeks that deal was signed, because I was over in France with the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, when the British government decided to give away to France another £662 million, 162 million more than the previous deal under the Conservatives, 162 of that, of course, being linked to productivity if there is a return from the French. Maybe that's what's playing out, but we don't really know, other than the French are becoming a bit more robust. But listen, you can't escape the figures, and even though, because of the windy conditions that we've reported on so often, Martin, in the English Channel in the first few months of this year, you've still got close to 7,500 migrants who have crossed. It's down a bit on the same period last year, but let's measure it when we get into the really busy, flat, calm summer months, when that gap can be very quickly closed and overtaken on a run of good days. Excuse me. Hay fever.
OK, Mark White, I think you're summing up how the British electorate feel there. This entire message very much getting stuck in the craw of the voters. Mark White, thank you very, very much for sticking around and giving us a hit on the show. It looks beautiful on the coast there, mate. Go and have a few jars, you've earned them. Thank you very much indeed, Mark White, down there on the coast. Incredible. Incredible. £65 billion, the cost of the small boats crisis, just in terms of the financial aspect, let alone the cultural impact. Incredible. Let's now get to Downing Street and speak with GBNews political correspondent live from Downing Street. Has the Prime Minister, of course, has vowed to fight on, some might say, with echoes of Comical Ali. You remember him from the Iraqi war. The war is over, but nevertheless, it's not. We're going to keep on fighting them. Olivia Italy looks deserted behind you. Who can blame them? If I was a Labour MP, I'd be hiding in the shed today.
Well, absolutely. Keir Starmer made a speedy exit from the back exit of Downing Street this morning at around 7 a.m. and he hasn't been seen since. We think here that he's probably holed up somewhere in Chequers. It is hard to overstate just how terribly awful these results have been for the Labour Party. So far, they've lost 288 seats. They're projected to lose between 1,200 and about 1,500 seats. That's 1,500 or so furious former Labour councillors who will be baying for Keir Starmer's blood. On Twitter, you've got various MPs from both the left and the right of the party not actually calling for Keir Starmer to go, but essentially saying that when there is a coup, it has to be orderly and organised rather than something dramatic happening over the weekend, essentially calling for fellow MPs to take stock and think about Labour's future and Keir Starmer's way out. Now, that is pretty low comfort for Keir Starmer today. Sharon of Unite is also saying, Sharon Graham of Unite is also saying that the writing is on the wall for Labour. So the question now, of course, is what happens next? Well, for a while it looked as though there might be some sort of coup this weekend, but I'm now hearing from various Labour sources that that is unlikely. It doesn't look as though Andy Burnham, who of course doesn't yet have a seat in Westminster yet anyway, will speak either today or over this weekend, nor Wes Streeting. We don't quite know about Angela Rayner. She is the great unknown here. The council in her seat has been decimated. Reform is gaining huge ground there. So perhaps Rayner could make a move. But for now, what I predict is a stay of execution for Keir Starmer, not because MPs or even cabinet ministers want him to remain in the job, but because at the moment they don't really have an alternative. The one man who Labour insiders think could perhaps beat Nigel Farage at a general election is Andy Burnham, but there is a very long route for him to get to Westminster. He doesn't yet have a parliamentary seat, and there is no guarantee that he could win a by-election. The state of Manchester for Labour was terrible overnight and was very bad today as well. So at the moment, Andy Burnham is not looking at a safe seat in Westminster. For now, his supporters would like to keep Keir Starmer in Downing Street, but I think quite a lot of them feel already that he's a bit of a lame duck Prime Minister. He won't go yet, he won't go this week, he probably won't go next month, but the writing is on the wall.
Italy, so quiet on Downing Street, you can't even see Larry the cat. It looks like a zombie movie. No one's there. No, not you. I didn't mean it that way. Olivia Utley, thank you very, very much indeed. It's a pleasure, as always, keeping a beady eye on, it has to be said, a tumbleweed. Downing Street, totally deserted. Let's get back to the studio for some more reaction because the results are coming in thick and fast. I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' political editor Chris Hope, GBNews' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Tom Hall was just hove back into view. I thought he had a can of beer. It's actually Diet Coke. He's about to talk us through the video wall. But first, gentlemen, let's dive into Wales. We're expecting a huge announcement imminently. The leader of Labour in Wales is about to be history by the sounds of it.
The First Minister. The person in charge. I mean, it is completely dramatic here. We've been focusing so far on England because that's where the focus has been with overnight counting. Wales is about to kick off, so we've got 2 seats won so far by Reform and Plaid Cymru, but many sources are now saying that Eluned Morgan has lost her seat. She only needed to win 12.5% of the vote, and she can't even do that. Labour have lost Wales, the first time since 1922. The first time...
A century?
Yeah, a century. The first time in terms of devolved elections since 1999, of course, when those elections started. That's 25 years ago. They're electing 96 members of the Senate there, 16 larger super constituencies, each with 6 members of the Senate in each one. The magic number is 49. If you get more than 49, then you can form a government. Plaid Cymru Reform, Plaid set to hit 43 seats, Reform 34, and that meant many thought Labour and the Greens would keep Reform out. But there was not beyond the realms that Reform win this, but still can't form a government, which would be the best place for them. I'm talking to senior people in Reform UK. Lee Anson hates this, me saying this, but they are telling me they don't really want to run Wales. It'd be a lot of work and difficult, and are they ready to run a whole nation yet?
Who would want to run Wales at the moment? I mean, let's be... It's a basket case. The country's on its knees financially. The roads look like it's the third world. It's so potholed. The NHS there is an example of how not to do it. Actually, politically, you might think it's more expedient. It's better for reform not to run the country.
It's been Labour for a century. We've got the lowest average wages in the UK, tensions in immigration, demonstrations in Penelli 2020, Llanelli 2023, Mold 2025. The Welsh NHS is widely seen as being difficult and, in fact, forcing some patients to go to England for their treatment.
OK, thank you very much, Chris. Nigel Nelson, we shall get to you shortly, I promise. But that man now who's supercharged on Diet Coke, hoping interview, Tom Hall, with your beautiful digital wall. You've got a resplendent Welsh flag. What are the scores on the doors? Tell us what's happening.
We have had 2 multi-member constituencies come in for Wales. Now, remember, in Wales, it's divided up so that there are 96 seats, each evenly apportioned between equally roughly sized constituencies in terms of population, 6 members apiece. So it's a little bit different from the Scottish system, where you've got 2 levels of representatives, 1 constituency, 1 regional. Here it is now all regional, and we've had 2 of these multi-member constituencies in. You can pronounce them in Welsh, which I might try and do with Casnewydd Islwyn, which actually is Newport and Islwyn. Or you could also, I'll try and pronounce Penibont Pro Morgang. Anyway, that is Bridgend and Vale of Glamorgan, if you want to say it in English. And given I don't speak Welsh, I think I might stick to the English pronunciation of these. Anyway, the same picture, basically mapped out, but in a different order. Over here in Newport and Islwyn, you've got the first party being Reform. The first 2 seats there go to Reform, second 2 to Plaid, then the Labour Party, then the Tories picking up the rear. The actual votes here were 25,000 votes for Reform, 23,000 for Plaid, 10,000 for Labour and 9,000 for the Tories. I've rounded up to the nearest 1,000 there for all of those. And similarly, what you have here in Bridgend and Vale of Glamorgan is that the Plaid Cymru party, which I know is saying party twice, but you know what, the Party of Wales or Plaid Cymru come first in that one. But the scores on the doors are that this basically evens out. Even though in this constituency Reform is first and this one Plaid is first, they each get 2. It's a proportional system doing what proportional systems do. So still, even odds now between Reform and Plaid, both on 4 seats each. Now, can one of them beat the other for that first place finish? At the moment, it looks like Plaid might have it, but we'll have to wait and see. And still, we're waiting for some of these mid-Wales constituencies where Anuned Morgan, the First Minister, may well lose her seat. Let's move on to England now, because in England, we have seen so many different results come through. And you'll notice on the board a lot of splodges of black. Now, this isn't some sort of party that we haven't heard of that has a fairly moribund party colour. No, this is actually how we're denoting no overall control. And we see here right through what I'm calling Burnham country in the northwest. Lots of splodges of black, whether it's in Wigan or whether it's in Angela Rayner's constituency over here or whether it's further west. What we're seeing actually is a lot of Reform gains pushing these councils into no overall control. A great example of this is actually up in the northeast, where you've got Hartlepool. Every single seat up for election in Hartlepool was won by Reform, but only a third of the seats were up for election. Hence, it is not turquoise, teal or cyan, however you want to say it. It is instead no overall control. What we do have is Newcastle under Lyme over here. All of the seats are up for election there. The vast majority won by the Reform Party, and therefore we've put it in turquoise. If we go over to London here, we'll start to see a slightly different picture for the Reform Party, winning, havering out there right out in the east, basically Essex territory here, and the Reform Party doing very well picking that up, but unable to pick up Bexley, which Nigel Farage was indicating he wanted to pick up, thought that he might pick up earlier in the campaign, but the Tories held on and basically kept out many Reform gains from happening here. And the Tories do better the further in you go to central London, winning back Westminster from the Labour Party. They only needed to gain 2 seats, they gained 7, and indeed Wandsworth gaining many seats. They're now 1 seat away from being a majority party. Helpfully, there is one independent, former Conservative councillor on the Wandsworth Council, so the Tories will probably manage Wandsworth as well. Lots more still to come in, though, in London particularly. We're looking at how the Greens are doing in Hackney, where they've won the mayoralty, and we're looking at Islington for the Greens as well, maybe some of those other central London boroughs. But let's go to Scotland now, where the results have come in thick and fast in the constituencies. And have a look at this. We now have 4 party colours on our Scotland map. The Labour Party has managed to gain a seat, remarkably, from the SNP. This is right up in the Highlands and Islands. It's a seat that previously has been SNP, it's previously been Lib Dem, but the Labour Party have managed to take it this time. Interestingly, the SNP have taken a seat from the Liberal Democrats up here. Shetland, Orkney and Shetland in Westminster are just 1 seat in the Scottish Parliament. They're split into 2, and the SNP have won the Shetland half. Also, interestingly, in Aberdeen, Stephen Flynn, the leader of the SNP MPs down in Westminster, he has won a seat as an MSP. That means that there will be a by-election in short order. That will be an interesting one to watch too. And could Stephen Flynn be aiming for a bigger job in the Holyrood Parliament? Quite possibly. But also some Conservative constituency wins down here in the borders, where the Conservatives have traditionally been strongest. So we have seen 2 Conservative constituency wins down there as well. You'll notice no Reform on this map. That isn't to say that the Reform Party isn't polling very highly. It is to say that perhaps we might expect the Reform Party to do best in the regional list top-up seats. That's how proportional representation under the D'Hondt method in Scotland, with the mixed member proportional system that it does, accounts for that proportionality. If you count up lots of second places, it's likely you'll be able to get your seats in the regional lists. But interestingly, Malcolm Offord, the leader of the Reform Party in Scotland, said if he could win 1 constituency seat, he would think that that was a good success. So that gives you a bit of a context for how Reform are expecting to do on the constituencies. They're expecting to mop up much, much more in these regional list seats. But as I say, until you have a full region of constituency seats declared, we're not going to be able to get to those regional seats, because you need the constituencies to then put into the formula to determine how many regional list MPs it is. Gosh, isn't first past the post simpler?
Tom Harwood, magnificent as ever, the king of data. Beautiful stuff. Thank you very much. Much more from Tom throughout the rest of the show. Let's get back to this side of the studio. Of course, I'm still with Chris Hope and Nigel Nelson. Nigel Nelson, you've been waiting very, very patiently. What would you like to talk about? There's so much to pick up on. What about this notion of there's just no such thing now as a safe Labour seat, and all eyes now will start to fall on London from 5 o'clock onwards? We're going to see a huge amount of seats coming in London that the Green Party will really fancy: Barnet, Brent, Enfield, Hackney, and a lot of these will be Labour heartlands which could be about to crumble.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There is no safe Labour seat in the country. Labour is collapsing at such a rate at the moment that every MP must now be worried about the general election. The question, obviously, is what they do about it. I mean, at the moment, we haven't had a lot of people coming out and saying the Prime Minister must go. It'll be interesting if Eluned Morgan loses her seat, whether she'll follow Anna Sawar, the First Minister in Scotland, and say that it's time that Keir Starmer went. She'd certainly be very angry about losing her seat, indeed about losing control of Wales. But we'll have to see what she does when the result comes in.
As you're speaking, I get a text from Labour saying they've held Rochdale, Knowsley and Bury, as though they should hold them anyway, but they're making clear they are holding some councils. But no question, we are expecting imminently that the result on Eluned Morgan, that could be a real political moment if she does what Anna Sawar did.
And also looking ahead, huge seats. I'm very excited about Sunderland will be called soon.
The home of Brexit, Martin.
The home of Brexit. And do you remember how important Sunderland was on that Brexit night? And I was saying all the way through the night, I'm getting Brexit vibes about this local election. It's an anti-establishment thrust. A lot of people who haven't voted in quite a long time, if ever. I've been hearing turnout's been very strong in a lot of these seats where Reform can make a difference. I think that we might see that as also in Wales. Sunderland, Wales, these are places that should never be changing away from the Labour Party. But this is pointed to something, I think, not just about Labour, Chris.
No question.
It's a dissatisfaction with the entire political establishment. Well, Reform surging, Greens surging, two-party politics dead in Scotland. We're about to see the same in Wales. A complete hard reset of the Westminster nonsense.
There's a group called Blue Labour, which speak for the group you're speaking for, Martin. They've issued a statement saying this is a bloodbath in our historic heartland, a threat to the soul of our party. Britain is broken, and Labour, the historic party of that working class, the party of Sunderland, arguably, is now standing for the failed political establishment. And that almost sets out what you've been saying there. People work hard, do the right thing, get no reward for it. The cost of everything keeps going up. High streets are boarded up. Life gets that bit tougher, and luxuries are hard to come by.
Nigel Nelson, Lord Maurice Glassman, who heads up Blue Labour, he's a great friend of the show. I think he's a magnificent man. He's a huge intellect, passionate, working-class advocate for the Labour Party. A lot of people watch this channel would share 95% of his politics. And here he is, a man politically destitute, broken by the direction of travel of Keir Starmer's Labour.
Yeah, and this is where I think the problem comes for Keir Starmer. He's being pulled by both the right and the left of his party. Now, if the Greens aren't as big a threat as he thought they were, it may well be that the battle will go now against reform and the right. So things like Shabana Mahmood's immigration policy, which is upsetting a lot of Labour MPs because it's retrospective, and they think that she should only control people who are about to come, not those already here. You might find if they're heading to combat the right, the opposition from Labour MPs will disappear on that one.
If you go back in time, you know, when you were covering politics back in the day, you know, my dad down the pit, the coal strike of '84, think about the marchers, Jarrow, think about the trade unions, think about the working class heartlands, what the Labour Party meant, what it represented. That's all gone. And I wonder actually if that's the problem. Well, the Labour Party doesn't represent people who labour anymore. Labourers support Reform UK. Well, they're a metropolitan, middle-class, Brompton-bite bunch of wazzocks.
They're certainly voting that way. I'm still not old enough to actually remember Jarrow, by the way, but some of the others, the miners' strike, certainly. I still think they do, by the way. They do represent these people, but politics is fractured. Politics is fractured. Where we had a two-party system, we're now looking at 5. That is giving people more choice. What we have to prepare ourselves probably is for more coalition government.
Well, coalitions of chaos, that could be what precipitates in Wales. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, that probably is the goal. They're going to do everything they can to lock Nigel Farage.
And even then, you know, we're seeing Reform at 29% in the elections today. That was the same as they got last time in that Manchester by-election, Gorton and Denton. Is that the top? In which case, that's not enough to form a government on their own.
OK, thank you very much. Let's get my next guest. And now delighted to be joined by the Labour activist, political commentator, great friend of the channel, Aisha Ali Khan. Aisha, I see you're dressed in black. How fitting. It's a funeral for the Labour Party.
Yes, I'm in black because it is, we're literally in mourning. It's been brutal. I've just come back from one of the counts. Got my, there's going to be a lot of tears, a lot of people, senior people within the party have lost their seats. Just had conversations earlier on with colleagues, Bradford leader Susan Hinchcliffe, I think she's lost her seat as well. Wakefield leader's gone. Deputy leader in Leeds, Calderdale, Kirklees, all going kind of the same way. So it's been brutal. That's like the best way I can describe it, sadly.
And Aisha, you know, I don't take any comfort in that. You know, I've stood in politics. I've won one. I got annihilated in one. I lost one with some dignity. It's painful. It really is painful. And you know, once the personal pain is dealt with, and that can take some time. All of your colleagues, your friends in the Labour Party, no doubt very invested in the social mission. Proper, hard-working, decent people. We must never forget that. But
thank you, Martin.
But I mean that. You know, we should put partisan things to one side on days of loss because it's traumatic. You're in a sense of grievance. I get that. But then the post-mortem starts. Surely, Aisha Ali Khan, something we talked about then, all eyes have got to be turning on to Keir Starmer. He's the man responsible. The buck stops with the captain of the ship. Is it time to throw him overboard? Come on, let's just get this done with. Keir Starmer's finished.
Well, I spoke to lots and lots of colleagues today, and I mean, Keithley still hasn't declared the results. They're counting the votes as we speak. So I think, and we've got another couple of councils that are going to be counting tomorrow. So we'll get a real picture, actually, whether we're going to be third place or fourth place. I think at this moment in time, it would be a miracle if we're in second place overall for Labour seats. And I think that is sending a powerful message to Westminster that something needs to change, because clearly for the last year and a half, obviously, since we've been in power, something has shifted massively, and people are not happy. And there's something, the messages that are being put out by the Green Party, by the Reform Party, by every other party apart from Labour, those messages are resonating more loudly and more emphatically with voters. And that's something we need to actually understand. And I mean, we've got obviously a general election coming up in a couple of years. Those years will pass so quickly. Time doesn't stop for anybody. So I think if we don't learn those lessons now, and again, lots of the, I mean, we had nearly everybody turned up today in the morning. I spoke to Robbie Moore, the Conservative MP, and I actually congratulated him, because Conservatives have done remarkably well. In fact, they are it was a direct competition between the Conservatives and the Greens, actually, in and around Keighley. So they've managed to hold on to a lot of the sort of reform wave that we're seeing across the country. The Conservatives actually, in Keighley at least, I can't say about other places, but in Keighley at least, the Conservatives have done really well. And I congratulated Robbie Moore, and I said, you've done really well, because a lot of the people have the same ideas and same sort of anguish and stress or whatever, up and down, anger as well, sorry, up and down the country. But yeah, we're going to have to take a step back and see where we go from here.
OK, Aisha Ali Khan, thank you for your grace. You know, today it's difficult, I understand that. And Robbie Moore, just a fantastic constituents MP. He's fought on the rape gangs issue and made himself a real bastion for that. So perhaps that's transpired into support locally. Aisha Ali Khan, thank you for joining us on a difficult day for you and your colleagues. I appreciate your time, I sincerely do. Now let's get to Birmingham now. GBNews' national reporter Jack Carson joins us live from the arena in Birmingham. Jack, a huge seat. Here's the big question. Will the electorate throw the Labour Party in the bin?
It's what it seems to be, Martin. It doesn't look like Labour are going to keep their majority, certainly of this council. Labour MPs such as Lawrence Turner, who's the Labour MP for Birmingham Northfield, seemingly admitting defeat already here in Birmingham. When we spoke to Richard Tice earlier on, he said it was too early to call whether there would be a clear, outright party winning this. We could be in a situation, Martin, where a coalition deal would be needed to gain control of this council, because of course there are so many big issues to try and get through over the next year for whoever takes control of this council. It's going to be hard in a situation of no overall control to be able to get a deal through possibly on ending things like the bin strike, setting a budget after the last few years of bankruptcy in this council. If we take a look currently at where we stand seat-wise, we've just had over 30 of the 101 seats to be declared today. The Conservatives so far leading on 8 seats, Reform on 7, Labour on 6, the Greens making gains on 5, and also the independent candidates, those candidates standing on pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza tickets, particularly in the inner city areas, winning well, beating Labour. And what we're seeing across Birmingham, particularly in the inner city, is a split a split in votes between Green candidates, between the Workers' Party, between independents and between Labour, meaning it's not taking many votes for some of those to gain, and it's causing Labour to lose a lot of votes. If we look at Balsall Heath, one of the more recent wards to be announced, the Greens gained that with 934 votes. Labour were down to 464. One of the independent candidates got 438. So that gives you a sense, Martin, of how much of a split, particularly in those inner city areas. Let's not forget Birmingham, Ladywood, which is Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary seat. That's where these are the wards that we're talking about. We're talking about Nechells, we're talking about Bawdsley Green, Lozells. These kind of places where really should be Labour's bread and butter for inner city Birmingham, and seemingly the view from those areas is that the British government haven't done enough in their view on issues like Gaza. But I want to show you, Martin, just some of the situation that we've had with the campaigning over the past few months. This is a leaflet from the Workers' Party that was handed out, and this just shows you the kind of campaigning that was done. The Palestinian flag there on that leaflet. These are the kind of issues. It's been Palestine and potholes, it's been bins and bankruptcy. These are the main issues, and that has caused division in the campaigning across this entire region as well. The West Midlands Mayor, Richard Parker, saying that he was almost chased down the street by someone when he was out campaigning in Coventry. That's the kind of state we're in, really, with the politics here in this region. I asked Lawrence Turner, the Birmingham MP for Northfield, the Labour MP for Birmingham Northfield, whether he feels that sectarian politics is coming in here. He said that wasn't the kind of issues that he was seeing on the doorstep. But when you look at the likes of those independent candidates gaining in the inner cities, that's exactly what we are seeing across here. So the situation now, Martin, is we're still kind of, the majority of seats left to still declare here in Birmingham. What is the path to victory for some of the parties? As I said, Reform saying that it's too early to call, but Birmingham Conservatives certainly happy that they are seemingly holding their vote up strong. It was a risk, really, with how we've seen in other areas in the West Midlands. Look at Newcastle under Lyme, look at Tamworth, those areas where Conservatives, Dudley, where Conservatives have been losing seats to Reform. The fact that the local Conservatives here seem to be holding well at the moment in those areas mean that they seem to almost level, really, in support in those outer areas with Reform. So the local Conservatives will be happy with that. The Greens certainly will be happy with the gains that they've made from Labour, and also them fending off some of that independent support that we're seeing in the city areas. But ultimately in Birmingham, what you're looking at is a divide between the outer city areas, what they seem important, what they see as the big issues, and the inner city areas. This, Martin, whoever ends up running this council is still going to have to run a divided city.
Well, Jack Carson, you've been up to your armpits in bin bags for the past God knows how long in Birmingham, and now the situation, well, it's even getting more chaotic. Thank you, Jack Carson. I'll tell you what, lads, that could be one of these coalition of chaos areas. I mean, how on earth do you run a council where you've got Reform sitting alongside Gaza independents? I mean, it'd be absolutely chaotic.
It would be chaos, and I think that this is what we must prepare ourselves for. That coalition is now what the future is looking like.
OK, just a quick update on the scores on the doors for those tuning in. Reform now 695 seats, approaching 700 mark. Liberal Democrats 448. Labour, they've broached 400. The bad news is they've lost 520. The Conservatives 396, down 294. Green Party 160, up 99. But a lot of Labour areas to declare later on. We expect that to go up substantially. Now we've got our poll of the day, and it's this. Is the two-party system dead? This is a straight-up Brexit. Yes or no? Get stuck in. Our poll of the day is the two-party system dead? Yes or no? Use that QR code on your screens there. Or go to gbnews.com/ to have your say. .com. Chris Hope.
Nigel Nelson earlier mentioned the issue of coalitions, which is the new future, I think. If you believe that Reform UK has topped out at 29% of the vote, can't get the 32% required maybe to win a majority in a normal general election, that could be the future. Just looking at the elements of the right here. So we all know about Restore Britain, which is Rupert Lowe's party. He stood councillors under a banner called Great Yarmouth First in Great Yarmouth.
Yes.
He's won at least 7, maybe as many as 10 of the seats he contested did there. A spokesman there says that people of Great Yarmouth want real change, not more of the same failed politics from Westminster. And so it goes on, running on Commonwealth policies, common sense policies, securing our borders, cutting waste, protecting British jobs for local workers, putting Great Yarmouth first. That's the kind of thing which Nigel Farage's party would say, and the Tories would say. So this idea of uniting the right, but in a tiny level, that's happening in Great Yarmouth. Why can't it happen there? Also more nationally.
A lot of people talking about Rupert Lowe as a potential political force for the future. Of course, Restore didn't field any candidates at this set of local elections.
But it did well locally.
Great Yarmouth First is that localised
seat,
hub.
That is Lowe's seat, and that means he's strengthening his tentacles into that seat.
And that will protect him well and give him a great ground game for a future general election. But it's one seat. Perhaps if they have ambitions, they need to look a bit further afield. Let's get my next guest in now and speak with the former Liberal Democrats MP, Mark Oaten. Mark, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. You must be pretty chuffed, Mark. Fair to say Liberal Democrats have had a pretty good night so far.
Yeah, I am, absolutely. Unlike your previous guest from the Labour Party, I'm not wearing black, I'm wearing white, because we did all right. So, yeah, I'm happy to where things are. And can I just say, Martin, you're the first commentator I've ever heard who's really acknowledged the personal impact on individuals who serve the community. So, from all parties, thank you very much for acknowledging that, because it often does get lost. But look, I think we have had a good night, and actually, traditionally, we get better as the evening moves on, because a lot of the seats that we're standing in are rural seats. They tend to count later. It takes longer to just go through that process. But, you know, Martin, I look on all of this, and I've been doing politics for 18 years, and I genuinely can say I've never known something as complex and confusing and mysterious as what we're facing at the moment. This is absolute political chaos. And, you know, your commentators in the studio, I think, would agree that we are heading for some seriously peculiar things happening in the run-up to the next general election. We have multi-party politics, but we're trying to squeeze it in to essentially a political structure which only allows for two parties. This is absolute chaos.
Or is it long overdue? Yeah, something I've been talking about for a long, long time is I think there's been an arrogance, there's been a taking for granted of the electorate by the big two political parties. And I think Brexit was, you and I would fundamentally disagree on Brexit, but I think it put a question on the table that put the electorate in a position to defy the system, and the system wouldn't listen. They would not listen. They haven't listened on controlling of borders. They haven't listened on all the key points on controlled immigration. I think yesterday, is a huge, massive middle finger raised not just to the Labour Party but to the entire establishment. And the Liberal Democrats have done well out of that, because you're seen as a landing ground for disaffected soft conservatives, you may say, socially progressive people who don't feel quite well with the Green Party. We're expecting a lot more Greens to come through in London. But Mark, my point to you is this: maybe the political system in Britain was long overdue this huge reset.
Well, certainly, I think that it's been building up for many, many years. And I think you're right to point to that referendum on Brexit. That was the first, if you like, fingers up to the electorate. But then Labour went on and won a huge majority. And it suggested that maybe, well, people still saw politics through the prism of should we be replacing the Conservatives with Labour. It is the failure of Keir Starmer that has now again broken that two-party political structure. And it's smashed it open again in these elections. I don't see how he can survive. I think we are facing multi-party politics. Even if they replace Keir Starmer, I can't see the Labour Party recovering to the levels that would mean they get a secure majority. But I can't also see reform breaking beyond that 30% threshold. The Lib Dems will not break beyond the 30% threshold, nor will the Greens. The Conservatives, I thought Kemi Badenoch's doing a little bit better recently, but they've lost loads of seats at the moment. So look, all round, we're facing a very uncertain future at the moment, and it's up for grabs for any of those political parties to grab it and try and sow something a little bit fresh, dynamic and new to the electorate, because I think that's what they want.
OK, Mark Oaten, well done. You're enjoying the day. But can I please ask a favour? Have a word with the boss. And no paddle boards or lycra this weekend. Thank you very much. I just need to try and switch off and enjoy myself. Is that all right?
No to lycra. 100% agree with you on that.
Mark Oaten, I appreciate your time. Superb as ever. Thank you very, very much indeed. To Scotland now. GB News' Scotland reporter Tony Maguire joins us live from Glasgow. Tony, all up for grabs north of the border. What's the scores on the doors?
Yeah, welcome to the great show, right? And it's been an incredible campaign, but now today, because nobody really knew what was going to happen, as it turns out, we could probably have guessed all along, the SNP roaring ahead on the national picture. I think they're sitting on 33 seats just now, 2 to Lib Dems, 2 to the Conservatives, and 1 go to Labour. Here in Glasgow, we're about halfway through the declarations just now. Both of the declared seats have gone to the SNP. Now, Reform, it's interesting because obviously people are questioning about where are they going to fix into the big picture. Now, they are with the declarations number 2 and number 3. Now, that does put them into good stead to actually pick up some regional seats. However, we're not going to find out that until a little later on. And all across Scotland, there's been these kind of great little narratives. On the south side of Glasgow, in the Eastwood constituency, that was held by Conservative former stand-in First Minister, former stand-in leader of the Scottish Conservatives. He lost his seat to the SNP, but in doing so, that now means that Scottish Conservative leader Russell Finlay actually stands a chance of keeping his seat when it comes to the regional list. But make no mistake about it, you know, all the leaders this afternoon have essentially been talking in absolutes. John Swinney acknowledged already that they're going to be the biggest party in Scotland. A little bit early for that, but, you know, it does look like a sure thing. Here in Glasgow, it seems that the SNP stronghold and one of Scotland's 2 big yes cities, they've not loosened their grip on that. And indeed, Anna Sarwar, when we spoke to him a little bit later, I couldn't get over how defeatist he was. They haven't lost any seats. They are currently down 1, I believe. Labour are up 1 seat in the standing, and the Conservatives are down 1. But it's kind of fascinating to see the mental psychology that all the leaders have been carrying for 6 weeks. It all comes down to this. And of course, here in Glasgow, this was a Labour heartland. I mean, this is very much, you know, a council that had Anna Sarwar's father play a massive role in it. So to see it now just fall almost completely into the hands of the SNP. But we're still about halfway through the seats here. But indeed, the picture across Scotland is quite stark. You know, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure that map in the studio is just kind of growing yellow with the odd peppercorn of the other colours kind of coming through there. None turquoise quite yet. Of course, the most likely Reform seat was going to be that seat up in the northeast. But let's just see, I guess, how the rest of it goes. We still have those all-important regional votes, and unless you're the world's best at mental arithmetic, well, hey, that could go any way at all.
Tony Maguire, superb stuff. Thank you very, very much indeed. We'll be coming back to you throughout the rest of the show. You're an absolute trooper, Tony. Beautiful stuff there up in Glasgow. Back to the studio for a quick bit of chat before the end of the hour. Nigel Nelson, you haven't much to say this hour. It's been so busy. Let's look ahead now if we can. I'm fascinated by Sunderland. I think Sunderland, as during Brexit, it completely baffled the political chatter in class. Sunderland? Brexit? Those of us who followed the campaign, who had skin in the game, absolutely understood why it went Brexit. Today, it's probably going to go Reform. Another huge bombshell for the Labour Party.
Yes, it is, because, I mean, what is happening is that Labour Party were so pleased to get the red wall back from Boris Johnson, which they obviously did during the election. Now they're losing it again at a local level. It obviously doesn't change what happens in Parliament. I mean, you've still got a massive Labour majority there, 160 working majority of 165 MPs.
It's already a zombie Parliament.
Well, I don't think it's a zombie Parliament. The important thing is that from now on, what the Labour government must do is not constant U-turns. They must get it right first time.
Well, that means changing the leader.
Not necessarily. It means the leader making sure he gets it right first time, rather than using up political capital on U-turns. Better to get it right eventually than never, but even so, getting it right initially would be much better.
And allow you a quick moment to think. Tell me when Keir Starmer's ever got anything right the first time since being Prime Minister?
OK, well, I think that what's been obscured by all the negative noise, Renters Reform Act, I think that was a real landmark. That was important. The Employment Rights Act, I think, was also important. No more zero hours contracts.
Well, that's hammered businesses.
And no more fire and rehire.
That's hammered businesses. See, I think, with respect, you're really scrambling around in the cornflakes to find anything positive that he's got right the first time.
Well, I'm just telling you what I think were positives that have been lost. And certainly he was able to change the Employment Rights Act to make sure that first-day rights didn't apply.
Chris, 20 seconds
for
quick.
6 months.
Taken Suffolk. Suffolk was one of the 30 councils they tried to delay the local elections. What's fascinating is the elections were meant to be delayed. They weren't delayed by the Labour government. Reform takes Suffolk. Fascinating.
That's huge news. Reform takes Suffolk. Another breaking news story, and it's coming thick and fast. Don't go anywhere. You're with us here on GB News. Well, huge breaking news already coming in there. Suffolk has gone to reform. Good afternoon, it's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We've got an action-packed 2 hours of delicious politics ahead. And here's what's coming up on today's show.
I'm not going to walk away from those challenges and plunge the country into chaos.
Well, despite the nightmare on Downing Street, the Starmageddon, the Prime Minister defiantly vows not to quit as he takes full personal responsibility for Labour's abysmal local election results so far.
I think there is a real threat that Nigel Farage could become Prime Minister, but that will be determined by whether or not this government can deliver the change the British public want.
Those words passing his lips. The Labour Minister Steve Reid admits finally there is a real possibility now that Nigel Farage will become the next Prime Minister as the Labour Party faces a local election wipeout across England. It's worth reminding ourselves, so far the Labour Party has lost an astonishing 58% of the seats it's been trying to defend. At one point last night, it was 83%. Historical lows. With more than 50 of the 136 council results in so far, the party appears to be losing its grip, losing its way in its historic heartland. And there's further misery for the Prime Minister as the number of migrants who have crossed the channel by small boats has surpassed 200,000. The grim milestone has been breached on a day already a bad news day for Sir Keir Starmer. Just got that little bit worse. And meanwhile, Nigel Farage says the best is yet to come, and Zia Youssef claims the Tory party is dead.
Labour are being wiped out by reform in many of their most traditional areas. And what you're going to see later on today is the Conservative Party being wiped out in their heartlands like Essex.
And indeed, we are just getting warmed up. Don't go anywhere because Reform UK are hoping to take further control throughout the rest of this afternoon.
This is unique, truly unique. But elsewhere in the West Midlands, Reform have absolutely smashed it. From Newcastle under Lyme to Tamworth to Nuneaton, Cannock, Dudley, it's remarkable.
Reform UK, meanwhile, north of the border, they're also hopeful in Scotland as the Scottish Reform leader Malcolm Offord says he fought the Holyrood election to become Scotland's First Minister.
I'm in it to win it. But at the end of the day, you know, we has, as I say, this has been a heartland for the SNP, so it's, you know, this is a real challenge.
Breaking news now. Let's go straight to the. Okay, we're not doing that. We're in the studio here with our team: Chris Hope, Nigel Nelson. Chris, right before the hour of 4 there, you did the breaking news. A huge council election, a full council. This is significant. There's been another victory for Reform UK. Chris Hope, bring us up to speed.
That's right, they've taken Suffolk Council. Now, Suffolk was interesting. One of the 30 council elections that Labour looked at trying to delay. That hasn't happened. I'm very keen to map the councils which they were going to not have their elections this time round with how people voted. And certainly at the time, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said that delaying this vote is denying democracy to millions of voters.
Well, OK, we are going now. Let's go to Kemi Badenoch, who's speaking in Bexley after winning the council back earlier today. Kemi Badenoch, is she there or not? Kemi Badenoch's just moved away. There we go. It's Kemi Badenoch victorious there in Bexley. As was pointed out, this certainly was an area of London that Reform UK had hoped to win. Chris Hope. Yeah. But Kemi Badenoch here defiantly keeping Nigel Farage at bay on a pretty tough night for the Conservatives.
Yes.
This would be a significant victory for them.
Well, earlier today we saw her in Westminster. Of course, they won in Westminster. They are the biggest party on Wandsworth, and now Bexley also. These are you take what you can in politics. This time last year, all she could do was go to the Peterborough mayoralty, which her candidate won. That was it. So what you always see on the day after elections. Can we pick up what she's saying there?
Canvassing, making sure that people vote share on adding the show. So please don't stop now. Please keep going. I know the election is over, but we've got to get out there and start all over again. Thank you.
I think we can hear say she's trying to G up.
I can't really hear what Kemi is saying there. So the fact of the matter is, this is an area I think the cameraman's had a couple of beers. Let me know. Or someone's giving him a tap, someone's trying to rugby tackle him. But look, the fact of the matter is, Kemi Badenoch here enjoying a moment that every political party leader wants, Chris, on a difficult night. They want to have some good optics, and this looks good for Kemi Badenoch.
It does indeed. I mean, she needs to take the wins where she can. She's underwater. She's lost MPs. She's lost standing in the polls for her party since she took over. It's not easy for her. She personally, though, has stepped up to the task, is well liked in the polling that we're seeing, but I'm afraid as a party they are not really cutting through enough. They are making some wins here and there, but really it's a patchy response from the Tories.
OK, thank you very much. Now let's get Kemi Badenoch there, victorious in Bexley. And let's get with my next guest now, the Conservative Shadow Science and Technology Secretary, Julia Lopez. Julia, thank you for waiting patiently in the wings there. We had to have images of your victorious leader there in Bexley. Let's be frank, it's been a difficult night for the Conservatives. You're on 435 seats, but you dropped 326, the vast majority of which have fallen to Reform UK.
Yeah, I mean, I won't dress it up. It was a difficult morning for me because I was in Havering, and it should be said that Havering was not controlled by the Conservatives. It was actually controlled by the Residents' Association, but Reform have won that council. But to see the Bexley shots coming through there is absolutely brilliant, particularly seeing a councillor called June Slaughter, who's a bit of a legend in the counselling world. Interesting result also from Bromley next door, where there was a by-election last year which was won by a Reform councillor who has subsequently lost that seat already. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of that as the months go by. But yeah, it's a difficult night, but with some bright spots, including Westminster, Wandsworth, Harlow, really good result in Harlow. And I think our vote share is around 20% nationally. So we're second after Reform.
OK, Julia, but just to interject, if I can, hugely anticipated results just coming in, and it's this historic Reform has taken Sunderland Council from the Labour Party after 50 years. That was a key area we were looking at. Julia Lopez, get your reaction to that. Many people were looking at the significance of the downfall of the historic Labour heartlands, mining communities, working class communities. Poof, gone to Reform.
Well, I think the really interesting thing about today, Martin, is that none of the Labour guys are willing to go over the top and say the Prime Minister should go. And I think that's partly because they just don't know which way to turn. They're having their dinner eaten from the right and from the left. And, you know, the idea that Andy Burnham's going to come as the cavalry when it's not clear that he could win a by-election right now, I think they're all rather confused about what they should do and whether actually getting rid of Starmer could lead to more chaos and in an even worse position than they're already in. Hence, there's a lot of discussion about taking their time, working out the next steps. They are very lost right now.
Do you think it gets to the point where Keir Starmer now is starting? Do you remember Comical Alley from the Iraq War?
Yes, yeah.
You know, it's like defiantly saying, hey, we're pounding them. We're pounding the opposition, and then meanwhile it cuts to an airfield where they're getting eviscerated. And I wonder now if we're at the Comical Alley point of Keir Starmer's tenureship as Prime Minister. It's like you can't keep on saying the country needs stability. We haven't got stability. We've got anarchy.
Well, I know. I think that's right. I mean, everybody would have seen his press conference earlier in the morning, where it's sort of everything's okay and I'm going to continue. I think we all know that Starmer's premiership is over. I think it was over a few months ago when he admitted in PMQs what he knew about Mandelson. The question has always been about what comes next, and the problem for Labour, as I insinuated, was that they really don't know what's going to come next. They haven't got a clear alternative, and they don't know whether they should go to the left or go to the right. They're not quite sure what they stand for anymore. But all the country knows is that they've been a disaster as a government.
OK, well, thank you very much for joining us on a very, very busy day. Take the victories when they come. Take Westminster, take Wandsworth, take Bexley. And I sincerely appreciate your time today. Thank you very much, Julia Lopez, for joining us here on GBNews. We're going to repeat that breaking news. This is the one that I certainly was waiting for as a working-class lad myself, and who supported the Labour Party. I'll be honest, for a long time I was a core Labour voter of what that is. Dad was a coal miner, watched the industrial heartlands of Britain just simply be ignored and go down the toilet. Today there has been a political payback. Reform has taken Sunderland Council from the Labour Party after 50 years. This should never have happened. It has. History has now been made, and I believe we can get to our next guest, and that's the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Runcorn and Helsby, of course. That is Sarah Poachin. Sarah, all eyes were on Sunderland. When you spoke with us in the wee hours, you broke that all of those seats in your area of Runcorn had gone to Reform, and now the big one, Sunderland. Sunderland's gone turquoise.
It's incredible, isn't it? But I was really interested to hear what your own story was there, Martin, because that's exactly what I'm getting on the doorstep in places like Runcorn and Helsby, and that is that the true Labour voters of old feel that the Labour Party is no longer representing them at all, and that the Labour Party just isn't what it was, sort of, back in the day, if you like. And I've got families that have said to me that for generations they voted Labour. But the Labour vote has absolutely collapsed, certainly in the northwest and my area last night. Yes, we took in Runcorn, every single Labour councillor lost their seat. We took them all bar one, and that went to a Lib Dem. And then over the bridge in Widnes, a similar story. We lost, we won everything apart from two, which we just didn't gain. So a complete collapse of Labour in what has been, again, as you described, a traditional Labour heartland area. And I tell you, it's on the doorstep because people say, what have Labour ever done for us? And for the first time for years, well, 50 years in the area that I now represent, there's not been a good alternative until a year ago, of course, my by-election. And now people can see what's changed already for Runcorn and Helsby in the year I've been there. And they see that if they vote Reform, they'll get Reform.
You know, it was really emotional. We did an outside broadcast from Sunderland. I went to a veterans club there, and GBNews was just being shown everywhere. And the working class communities there, former shipbuilders, former coal miners. Now, we were down, former dockers. Now, we were down on the dockside in the morning. We were filming in Sunderland, and we were just getting mobbed by people. You know, working class men walking their dogs, working class mums walking their dogs, you know, who are just saying, these are people, just to try and put this in context, these are people who would not have spat on Margaret Thatcher. I mean, it was that deep. You know, their distemperament, their loathing of the Conservatives was that deep. It was in their DNA. One of them told me in the Working Man's Club he would welcome a Prime Minister like Maggie Thatcher today. And then, of course, he said, that person is Nigel Farage. And today, look at this vote. It's astonishing.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I want to make one point. When I won a year ago, and I would imagine that there's many Reform councillors that I hope feel the same, is it's hugely humbling to have be part of this huge political change in this country. I mean, this is historic. We have not seen the collapse of the two main parties ever before, but we are witnessing history in the making. I made history up in Runcorn, and what you're describing in Sunderland, we are making history. And it is hugely humbling because I'll tell you why. I feel a huge weight of responsibility on my shoulders for all the people that you describe that stop you in the street. I have cars pull up to me when I'm walking down the pavement going, Sarah, please carry on, do what you're doing. All our hope now is in you and in your party. That is a huge responsibility. We have to deliver for the British people because the true British patriots, all their hope now is pinned on reform. We are returning these seats. We are winning these elections. We clearly need to keep going with every single election until we get into Downing Street, where we will then be in a position to truly change things in this country.
Sarah Perchin, what's been also fitting and telling, when I was speaking, I get very, very humbled and very emotional when I speak with, people in forgotten communities. I know you do too, and I know a lot of political guests on this channel do. And people's sense of abandonment is really, really palpable. But more than that, when they're constantly told that they're racist, they're far right, all of these terrible things by people from metropolitan areas who simply don't get the working classes, I wonder actually if all of that political tactic has not only failed, it's calcified communities like Sunderland to vote in defiance.
100%. So I can go into the sort of Wetherspoons in Runcorn or those sort of places now, and literally I am welcomed because they see us as a beacon of hope. And look, on the doorstep, there's two issues and I've campaigned endlessly for this set of elections. Two issues. I'm sorry, but the first one is immigration. People talk about it all the time, and people say on those sort of housing estates in places like Runcorn, and it'll be the same in places like Sunderland, but they say to me, like you say, we've been forgotten. No one does anything for us. How is it that all these people are on housing lists, and yet the illegal asylum seekers come straight in and get the new houses? People are feeling that, Martin. They really are. And then the second thing, of course, is the pavements aren't maintained and the hedges aren't cut, and all of the things that people need when they go out of their door in the morning to feel good about their lives.
And Sarah, pardon me for looking at my screen when I was talking to you, but news is coming thick and fast, and this is something else I'd like to share with you. Incredible. The leaders of both Sunderland and Newcastle Labour Party are out. The Labour leaders. So Newcastle's Labour leader Karen Kilgore has lost her seat, with all three seats up in the Blakelaw and Cowgate ward going to Reform. So Reform has taken out the leader in Sunderland. The Labour Council leader, Michael Mordy, lost his seat to Reform, and the Labour leader in Newcastle has lost her seat to Reform. So not only losing the areas, but the leaders. This is like the ground opening up and swallowing the Labour Party.
And it's just an incredibly powerful moment in history. It's interesting, isn't it? We're talking about local elections. When have we ever given so much attention to local elections? Politics is electric at the moment. Young people are engaged. Young people stop me on the street and want to talk about it. And some not always good stuff either from young people. There's a lot of brainwashing that goes on in schools certainly around my area. But the point is that people are engaged. And yes, these council leaders have lost their seats, and so they should. Because if they'd have been doing a good job, Martin, if they'd have been delivering for local people, then they wouldn't have lost their seats. This is people, the silent majority, as we call them, alarm clock Britain, have woken up and have gone out there and voted. And I was telling everyone in these elections, every vote counts. And we all know that I'm living proof of that with my 6-vote win in that historic by-election. But people they have gone out and voted. Local elections have always been something that, the majority of the population have thought, can't be bothered with that. Don't really know. It doesn't make any difference. But not this time. People have got up, they've got off the sofas, and they've gone down the polling stations and they've voted for change. And look, these people that are losing their seats deserve deserve everything they've got because they have not delivered for the British people.
Can I tell you one thing? You talk about every vote counts. You won by 6. Aldershot, the home, of course, of the British Army, Aldershot North, Reform beat Labour by 1 vote. A single vote decided Aldershot. Kevin Bellsworth took 1,583 elected, beating Gaynor Austin for Labour 1,582. 1 vote. That one person thought, oh, I can't be bothered to vote today. Yep. They've just decided how that seat goes. Every vote counts. Sarah, you're living proof of that. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Absolute pleasure to have your company. Thank you. Nigel Nelson, back to the studio here. You and I mean, I'm sort of goosebumpy. And it's because when Newcastle falls, when Sunderland falls, when the council leaders fall, it's more than just a seat. It's an earthquake. I really think it is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'll have to see when it comes to a general election how a real earthquake happens. But these are what the Americans would have termed the midterms. They set a lot of store by them, and these elections are probably the most important ones we'll see before we have the general election in 2 or 3 years' time. Sunderland falling, yes, is a real blow to Labour. It was once the biggest shipbuilding town in the world, second most populous northwest seat.
And that's the point. It was abandoned. It was abandoned by globalisation. The industry was never replaced. The industry and its workers were thrown on the scrap heap by successive governments, Conservative.
Yes, I mean, with successive governments, I mean, the world changed. But I mean, obviously, they've turned pretty comprehensively to reform. Reform needed 38 councillors to take overall control. They got 39.
And that is why this is more than just a seat. You know, I just can't impart enough to our viewers and listeners when you go to places like Sunderland, and they'd never tell their friends if they voted Conservative. They keep quiet about it. All those years, in the dark days of, you know, the miners' strikes, or when the shipbuilding areas, the docks were getting shut down, and the area fell into destitution. Now they've been pummeled with HMOs. They've been shoveled with Liberal problems. No one had a say, no one had a voice, and they have delivered the most defiant wake-up call to Westminster. This is Brexit all over again. It really, really is. It's a Brexit-style defiant vote. It's incredible. Tom Harwood, you've been waiting patiently there with your video wall, bringing us all the scores on the doors. Tom, brings us up to speed.
That's right. We're beginning to paint the maps quite largely now. Honestly, it's a long day. Now, this map of Wales, 96 seats to win, districts of equal population size, roughly 6 seats apiece. Now, it might look like Plaid Cymru has absolutely swept the map, but that would be slightly misleading. Take Carmarthenshire here. Now, that's a massive splodge of sort of dark Plaid Cymru green. And yet, if we follow the arithmetic here, it actually is an even number of seats. 3 to Plaid and 3 to Reform. That is exactly the same over in Caerphilly. I'm not going to read out the entire Welsh name. It's just far too late in the day for that. Again, 3 to Plaid, 3 to Reform, despite Plaid edging first and therefore getting that colour on the map. Don't be deceived by the colour on the map. Look for the colour of the dots that we're putting beside the map. And what you'll also notice by these dots is that these are the place that the parties come in order of their votes. So if you get the most votes, you get the first seat. Then your vote share gets halved, and then you'll see if you get the second seat. Anyway, look at where Labour is coming. Again and again, at the last possible point in each of these 6-member constituencies. So where Labour is winning, it's coming right at the end of the ballot. The lowest share of the vote, apart from over here in this constituency, is where the Tories came at last. This is nothing short of seismic. Where Labour is clinging on, they're getting just 1 seat. This in a country that the Labour Party used to own, to dominate. This is a seismic loss for the Labour Party, and we're only getting started. 96 seats to be won here, of course, up from 60 under the previous electoral system that used to take place in Wales, where you had a mixed member proportional system. It's known as the additional member system, which actually is the system that Scotland still uses. So let's turn to Scotland now, where we will see a more mixed picture, not just a sea of yellow that we've been used to, but actually a little bit of a red victory up here in the Highlands and Islands, Conservatives winning constituencies down here in the borders, the Liberal Democrats, of course, controlling Orkney, although losing Shetland to the SNP. Orkney and Shetland just one seat in the British Parliament, but in the Scottish Parliament, divided into two different seats. And ultimately, what we need to remember here is that this is only half the map. Well, I say half the map. It's 73 seats that are done on constituency basis. There are 56 seats that are then apportioned proportionately due to these regions. Once a region fills up, then we can start doing their proportional seats, and that, I think, is where we'll start to see the reform vote come through on the proportional top-up list rather than in these constituencies. Still a lot to play for. Unlikely, however, looking at this map of various colours, even a little bit of green there in Edinburgh Central, unlikely that the SNP will have a majority on this map.
Tom Howard, absolutely superb. Thank you very, very much indeed. Love it. Now, let's speak with GB News' political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who joins us live from Downing Street as the Prime Minister has, of course, vowed to fight valiantly on. Olivia Utley, where is Sir Keir Starmer? He's shuffled off to Chequers, but his politicians are being hung out to dry. Sunderland just fallen to Reform. Leader of Newcastle Council, Labour, fallen to Reform. We're hearing in Wales the Labour Party could be eviscerated down just to 10 seats. The Labour Party's world is falling apart around his ears. Where's the Prime Minister?
Well, as you say, Martin, the Prime Minister fled to Chequers at about 7 a.m. this morning. There's been no sign of him in Downing Street since. It is hard to overstate just how bad this is for Keir Starmer. Labour is on set to lose around 1,500 council seats. That's 1,500 defeated councillors who are going to be very angry. They will be baying for Keir Starmer's blood over the next few days. But of course, it's Labour MPs and cabinet ministers who really matter here. We've had a couple of senior cabinet ministers, John Healey and David Lammy, speaking on the airwaves this morning, saying that Keir Starmer needs to stay. But there are some pretty influential MPs on the left and the soft left of the party who are suggesting that if Keir Starmer doesn't go now, there should at least be some sort of timeline set out for his departure. John McDonnell, Diane Abbott have both said something to that effect on Twitter. And Louise Hay, former cabinet minister, former transport minister under Starmer, has now said that there has to be some sort of timeline for his exit, that he can't lead the party into the next general election unless there is some sort of dramatic change. It doesn't look as though any of the main contenders for the Labour leadership, so that's Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, or of course Andy Burnham, who doesn't even have a seat, are going to make any kind of move in the next few days. It looks as though there will be a stay of execution for Keir Starmer. But this is a picture of a party in stasis. The country knows, the government knows, cabinet ministers know that Keir Starmer can't last until the next election. It's now a question, I think, of when, not if, he goes.
OK, thank you very much there, Olivia Utley. Oh, Larry the Cat was behind you there. Larry the Cat, that's the official spokesperson of the Prime Minister's regime, but more sense we'll get out of them today. Thank you very much, Olivia Utley. Superb indeed. Let's get now to my next guest. That's the Labour Party MP for Birmingham, Edgbaston, and it's Preet Gill. Preet, welcome to the show. I can see you're at the count there. It's looking like it's going to be another very difficult result for the Labour Party. The Independents doing well, Greens doing well, Labour can't seem to get past either of them, and I'm hearing that the Independents are doing very, very well in Shabana Mahmood's area, underlying the notion there's no such thing as a safe seat at the moment, not even for the Home Secretary.
Look, of course, it's very disappointing, some of the results here. We haven't heard all of the results come in and we are still waiting. I just want to thank everybody, all of our brilliant candidates and volunteers that came out, knocked doors and spoke to so many people. And of course, this is a disappointing result. Many people were saying that the issues for them were the state of the roads, the bin strike. Of course, many people fed up that it had gone on for way too long. Even though the council had now had a multi-year funding settlement for the government, we've got money prior in place, 20 million. So the council really turning a corner in some of its difficulties. But of course, the Labour Party nationally and locally will reflect on what the message that the British public have given us, and we will make sure that the change that we need to deliver is not only felt by people, but the fact that our communication means that people know about it. Far too many people told me when I told them what Labour had delivered, said they hadn't even heard about some of those issues, and that is a challenge for us to make sure that we communicate with the electorate, given there's so much misinformation out there. That is really incumbent on the party to do that.
Look at the quick scores on the doors in Birmingham where you are. There at that count, about a third of the seats have been declared in Birmingham. So far, the picture is this. The Conservatives have won 8 seats, Reform UK 7, Labour behind on 6, the Greens on 5, Lib Dems 3, and there are 5 independents. We're heading towards a coalition of chaos by the looks of it in Birmingham. And let's be absolutely brutal, that coalition of chaos will have been precipitated by the fact the Labour Party has thrown the area into total chaos itself. The bin strikes that have made the city look like a third world town. And isn't that the point? Now it's the electorate's turn to put the Labour Party in the bin.
Well, look, I mean, the electorate sent us a very strong message. There were many people that I spoke to on the doors that said normally we would vote Labour, but really we've had enough in terms of the bin strike. It's gone on too long, and certainly, you know, the issues of the state of the roads. A lot of people had local factors that, of course, meant that they voted differently. But this is a council that has had £1 billion taken away from it by the Conservatives. You can't overturn that in 18 months. The Pride in Place money, 20 million to communities, is a way of addressing the fact that our children's centres, our youth centres, our neighbourhood offices were all cut and all decimated, and these are the areas that we really want to build back, have a much more fairer system. And, you know, having a government in power meant that this council could now start delivering. It has addressed the IT system. The issue with the bin strikes is the red line had to be equal pay liabilities. You cannot cripple council finances any further. And so, of course, it was going to take time. I understand the sentiment of people of Birmingham. I apologise that we let them down. And we will hold whoever is in power here, because, of course, we don't know what's going to happen now, to account. Because in the end, what matters is that people feel that services are being delivered for them.
Preet Gill, you may have heard, news may not have reached you in that busy arena there, but there's been some totemic defeats for the Labour Party in the past few moments. Sunderland has fallen from Labour control to Reform. Newcastle, likewise. These are areas that have been Labour since the dawn of time. We're understanding that the leader of the Senedd in Wales, the Labour Party, is set to lose her seat. That's going to be imminent. The Labour Party wiped out in Wales, wiped out in Sunderland, wiped out in Newcastle. The Labour Party used to stand for the working classes, the labourers. You've totally lost your way, haven't you? The working classes don't vote for you anymore. You become a party of metropolitans, of inner cities. The Labour Party is not fit for purpose.
Absolutely not. Look, I mean, there are so many things that Labour has delivered, and I can tell you 30,000 the waiting list has come down in the hospitals in my constituency, 8 free breakfast clubs, 2 school-based nurseries, state pension gone up by £575, living wage going up, and there is so much more. People are just not hearing about it. When they do hear about it, actually they say they will deliver Labour. I think it's incumbent on all of us. What is government for? Government is about delivery, and the media needs to communicate and make sure it's talking about what Labour is equally delivering and holding it to account. People are not hearing the message. We're up against a lot of disinformation. The Labour Party should come out with rebuttals. We have Nigel Farage, the leader of the Reform Party, who took a donation of 5 million, hasn't declared any information. We have the leader of the, in contrast, we have the leader of the Labour Party who will apologise when he's made decisions. That's what serious leadership looks like. It's not a personality contest. This country requires a very serious Prime Minister, and we have one.
Do we? Do you honestly think we have a very serious Prime Minister, let's be absolutely brutal. You know, thousands and thousands of good people will lose their jobs because of the Prime Minister. The buck stops at the door of Sir Keir Starmer. Preet Gill, I know you're going to be loyal to your Prime Minister, but the brutal reality is the party is over unless you ditch Sir Keir Starmer.
The party's not over. He has a mandate to deliver. He must be allowed to get on and do the delivery. Ever since we came into power, he has been criticised. The bar has been held very, very high, especially if we look at what's going on right now with leaders being able to say what they want, have policies which are not costed. That's not serious, credible leaders of many of the other parties. What we have in a Prime Minister is a man of integrity on the world stage when we have a war in Iran, which is going to impact directly people's cost of living, their weekly shop. He is taking the decisions that he needs to by bringing together partners, our European allies, looking at how we build more economic prosperity and security alliances with the EU. This is the kind of leadership that the world needs, that Britain needs, and we're just not hearing enough about what the Prime Minister has delivered. He has accepted responsibility. Now, he absolutely will take personally that so many good colleagues will be lost.
Can I just interject again that Brexit land has pulled the rug on the Labour Party today. The red wall that got you into power has abandoned you. The Brexit land has abandoned you. Maybe that's because you keep banging on about Brussels. The electorate don't want to get closer back to Brussels. The inner cities might, the people who might vote for the Green Party, the people who might vote for Liberal Democrats, but your core working class vote doesn't want that. Can't you see? You're pushing policies that the towns and the cities that have supported you for a century are abandoning you.
No, I don't accept that. I accept that the Labour Party has always fought back. This is about taking stock of what the electorate is telling us. This is about humble enough and reflecting about actually people are not feeling the pace of change. People wanted Labour to succeed. They still want a government to succeed. They don't want 6 prime ministers in 10 years like we have had. Instability isn't good for the country. Instability is not good for our economy. And actually what we've had with this government is delivery, Renters' Rights Act. People saying to me, I am so excited about some of the Labour Party's policy, we're just not hearing them enough. And that's what people want. People want to hear what is government actually doing so that the media can hold the government to account on those issues and not about tittle-tattle that we hear far too often that people are just not interested and puts them off politics.
OK, thank you very much. Joining us there from Birmingham. That's Preet Gill, Labour MP for Birmingham, Edgbaston. Thank you very much indeed. Well, she put a brave face on. There's a lot of cheering going on behind her there. I wonder how much of that was for the Labour Party. Now, let's join my next guest now. Of course, it's GBNews' chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's there for us in Wales. Catherine Forster, all eyes now on what could be the next spectacular Labour Party collapse in the Senedd. What's all the latest?
Yes, well, welcome to Wales and welcome to history. Any minute now, I think, what's happening. We may get a declaration, but I'm here in the First Minister Eluned Morgan's constituency. It's in West Wales. It's called Ceredigion Penfro, and it's an enormous area. We've got these new constituencies, 16 of them, and we are expecting that the First Minister is going to lose her seat. And basically, we know that Wales has been Labour for, it feels like forever, for over 100 years. Since the devolved government started in the Senedd in 1999, always Labour. That is lying now in ruins. The two big winners, Plaid and Reform. We've got about half the results in so far. At the moment, Plaid are just ahead in terms of seats. Reform's source said to me a few hours ago that they thought Plaid would win overall, but Reform also doing really, really well, especially in the south, in the east of Wales. Labour are now expecting to only end up with 10 or fewer seats out of 96. It's quite incredible. Maybe only 1 in 10 from a government who until now had just under half of the Senedd. It is quite extraordinary. I think. Sorry, forgive me, Martin. Sorry, you said.
No. So any idea, Catherine, the Labour Party is already sending out, they've already conceded Wales. I mean, it would take more than a miracle for the Labour Party to take Wales. They've lost Sunderland, they've lost Newcastle, they're losing their industrial heartlands. Wales, though, of course, it's a country. To lose a country they've controlled for well over a century would be an utter disaster. And in fact, John McDonnell in the early hours, OK, he's a lefty, he's a Corbynista, a long-time trouble causer, he likes causing trouble for Keir Starmer. But he said if the Labour Party don't do well in Wales, Sir Keir Starmer needs to go. The Labour Party are about to do terribly in Wales.
They are about to do absolutely catastrophically in Wales. They're going to have just a few seats left. Eleanor Morgan, the First Minister, was given the opportunity when Anna Sarwar of the Scottish Labour leader had called on the Prime Minister to go a couple of months ago. Eleanor Morgan did not do that. We expect her to make a speech. She's also going to make a statement, but we have been told, a Labour source said to me, that this is not about Starmer, but clearly Sir Keir Starmer is part of the problem. But I think it was really interesting what former Welsh First Minister Karen Jones said earlier. He said that Labour is no longer seen as the party of the working people here in Wales.
Catherine, I think that is exactly the point. And I think, in a sense, they're correct. This is not just about Sir Keir Starmer. It's about the Labour Party forgetting it used to stick up for the working classes in Wales, in Sunderland, in Newcastle. We're seeing something quite astonishing going on. Catherine, we'll be with you for that count shortly. Thanks for joining us now. Meanwhile, let's get back to Sunderland. Of course, that's where it's all happening. GBNews reporter Bethany Elsey is in Sunderland as Reform have historically taken the council after more than 50 years in Labour's hands. Bethany, welcome to the show. You know, GBNews was in Sunderland. We did an outside broadcast from there last year. I was blown away by the dissatisfaction with former dock workers, former coal miners, former veterans, servicemen up there. They spoke during Brexit. Who can forget how important Sunderland was? By Jove, they've just spoken again, and they've torpedoed the Labour Party straight into the North Sea.
Martin, you're absolutely right. I couldn't have said it better myself. Reform UK now have a stonking majority at Sunderland City Council. It's a major blow for the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, with Nigel Farage's party now gaining 58 seats here. Sunderland has been a Labour stronghold for generations, but voters have had their say, and that's not the case anymore. The feeling has been reflected in the results, and here to talk me through them now is newly elected Chris Enyon for Red House. Chris, a historic result for your party today.
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable result. This is well and truly the death of the Uni Party in Wearside tonight. The Conservatives reduced to 0 seats, Labour reduced to half a dozen, and record gains for Reform in Wearside. You don't get more red wall than Sunderland, and the turnout has been a record high. It's never been this high. And we've won places with Labour councillors for many, many decades. The people have had enough of Labour and they want Starmer out.
How did Labour get it so wrong? Is it Sir Keir Starmer's fault, or is it, you know, a Labour council for generations that has potentially become complacent?
I think national issues with broken manifesto pledges, going after the farmers, the winter fuel payments, that's been a massive factor. But locally, I think a lot of residents just feel Labour has been taking their vote for granted. They realise the only show in town to get Labour out is Reform UK.
Now, Reform has obviously seen huge results, not just here in Sunderland, but across the UK. But the party is currently untested. How are you going to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes as Labour and that you deliver for the people of Sunderland?
I think we're going to learn from the mistakes that Labour have done. We're going to learn from where they went wrong, but also Durham County Council, we have a beachhead there in the northeast. We're going to learn from the fantastic work they've done, work collaboratively with them, and fundamentally in the northeast, I think this is going to be the first of many councils we take over the next 24 hours.
Reform UK are huge on national policies. How are people on the doorstep going to benefit from a Reform UK-led council?
I think because fundamentally we want to put Wearside first. That's our motto, Wearside first. And with that, we're going to have real nothing off the table approach. We're going to really go in there and give a fresh look at everything that's been going wrong. But fundamentally, we don't know how the balance sheets are going to look until we get in there. This council under Labour's watch is in £500 million of debt. So there's going to be a lot of work to do, but we're looking forward to it.
All right, Chris Onion, thank you very much for joining us, Martin. Let's get back to you. A historic result here in Sunderland with Reform UK obliterating Labour's red wall.
Bethany Elsey, superb. Thank you very much for joining us. And I keep saying this is more than just the seat. This is an earthquake. It really is a total rejection of decades of political legacy. That really is quite a moment. Thank you very much, Bethany Elsey, there for joining us from Sunderland, where it's literally all happening. Back to the studio, I'm joined by Nigel Nelson. I'm delighted to be joined as well by Martin Baxter, the CEO of Electoral Calculus. Martin, you were valiantly with us all the way through the nights from 11 till 6 a.m. Hope you got some sleep, Captain. I grabbed a few hours. You're back at it again, as am I. Let's talk about Sunderland. We cannot overestimate enough how important this is. It's a total rejection of decades of Labour Party heartlands. What are the scores on the doors? As I understand it, is it 75 seats on this council? So they haven't all been counted up yet, but what are the scores on the doors as we speak?
Yes, we were 18 hours into the counting, but how Britain and particularly areas like Sunderland have changed. So, as you say, of the 60 seats declared, and you need 38 for a majority, Reform have 46, so they already will be in control of Sunderland Council, but possibly more to come. Liberal Democrats lost 3, Conservatives lost all 6 of theirs, but Labour, of those 60, used to have 42 of those seats. They have lost 37 and they've only got 5 left. So that is a catastrophic loss for Labour in Sunderland. And it's similar to other situations in the north. That Wigan, Labour lost every single seat that was up for election. They only held the council because only a third of the seats were up for election. But there's places where Reform are really taking a lot of seats from Labour, and there's Labour losing seats all over, which has been the story of the night that we've seen.
I mean, Martin Baxter, you were the first person to use the word around about midnight last night. You said this is already looking like it's turning into a rout. And I think that prophecy has become true. The numbers are incredible, but not just the numbers. But when you think about places like Sunderland, places like Newcastle, places like Wales, I mean, we're expecting imminently the leader of the Welsh Labour Party, the First Minister, to lose her seat. I mean, these are events that are so rare, they're incredibly noteworthy. It's a total reset.
It absolutely is. In particular areas of the country, I think that the route, to use that word, is particular in the northern Labour areas there, in Wales, less so in London and some of the urban areas. So it's not a 100% annihilation, which was a word we were experimenting with earlier, but it's very bad for Labour. Wales, of course, incredible. Labour have been the dominant party in Wales for over 100 years. As Tom and Catherine were saying, it's now looking like Plaid and Reform are the top 2 parties, as Electoral Calculus predicted earlier last night, with Plaid doing quite well. So it is very bad for Labour in many places.
OK, thank you very much, Martin. Nigel Nelson, thank you very much. We've got some... Let's just go have a quick reset, because earlier on today, the Reform UK leader, Dan Thomas, that's in Wales, had this to say to GBNews on his party's chances in the Senate elections, and this is what he had to say.
But look, we tried to maximise our votes. At the end of the day, that's been our goal: maximise our vote, and I think we've done a really good job on that, especially when you compare to where we came from, 5 years ago. And we're a dominant force now in Wales. I still think it's possible for us to lead a government. We've got lots of constituencies yet to declare, and I'm hearing encouraging news from those. But of course we would. And who would we work with? Anyone who will help us deliver our manifesto commitments. We've not ruled anyone out. Unlike the other parties, we've not ruled anyone out.
That's Wales. Now, meanwhile, the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, was speaking earlier on today in Bexley after winning that council back. Let's hear what Ms Badenoch had to say.
Well, first of all, can I just say thank you, Bexley. Thank you, Bexley, because we know that Nigel Farage threw the kitchen sink at this borough and he did not get anywhere. The number one target in London, the number one target London, and Bexley said no to reform. Do you know why? Because you guys are next to Kent, and you saw the mess that they are making in that county. Well done, David. Have we got, where is June? June, you are amazing. 50 years as a councillor, her 14th election in a row, and she is there sending reform packing. Well done, June. Thank you. And it wasn't just Bexley. We had lots of great results in Westminster, in Wandsworth, in Broxport, in Harlow, in Basildon. The Conservative Party is coming back. Thank you. Thanks for voting. But even as we're celebrating, I know that there are some candidates and councillors who didn't make it over the line. They worked so hard, and I want to say to them that I am sorry, but you are coming back. We are going to keep fighting. We need to let people know that we are renewing, we are rebuilding as a party, and this country needs us. Deliver for Bexley, to deliver for the country, to deliver for London, because we are the only party that has a plan for this country. We are the only serious party. We are the only credible alternative to Labour. You can have lots of parties to tell you whatever it is that you want to hear, but only one party is actually going to do it. We are the
Yeah. Hello, it's Kemi Badenoch here. I'd like to summon every Conservative in London to get to Bexley sharpish, so it looks like we're having a good news day. I mean, look, I think we can all see what's going on here. The Conservatives have had a pretty grim night and day. 483 seats, but they've lost 414. But credit, hung on to Bexley there. They're also taken Wandsworth and Westminster in the centre of town. They'll be very happy about that. They fought off Reform UK to keep Bexley, but let's be abundantly clear here. There's a lot of politicians today with a rictus grin, pretending they've had a good night when they've had anything but. I think Kemi Badenoch we can add to that list. To Scotland now. Let's get to GBNews reporter Dougie Beattie, who's there for us in Aberdeen. Dougie Beattie, superb reporting from you so far. It's all heating up north of the border. What's the latest scores on the doors, Captain?
Well, in this particular count, there was 6 seats to be had. The SNP managed to take 5 of them, and the Tories managed to hold on. Alex Burnett, the only one that managed to hold on to a seat and keep it away from the SNP. But the real story here is actually the splitting of the vote between the Tories and Reform, because in Breifusher and Buchan, the Reform candidate, his first time really out in an MSP election, he came within 250 votes of the SNP, and in Aberdeenshire East, the Tories came within 900 votes of the SNP. 2 seats that were basically gifted to the Scottish National Party because the Labour vote here has pretty much disappeared, leaving the SNP a clear run. Now, what we look at in future, I've asked both parties would they look at electoral pacts, and they have both said definitely not. They will go into opposition inside Scotland, but both of them agreeing that there's a £30 billion overspend in Scotland, and really the SNP needs to get the hold of that. We now are waiting on the PR side of this election, the list as it's called, giving out those proportional representation seats, but we have to wait for the rest of the North East to finish counting so as we can know exactly who is getting those seats. So some people that stood here may get onto that list and receive some of those proportional representation seats, but really it was a good day for the SNP here in Aberdeen with a vote that was down.
Thank you very much there, joining us from Aberdeenshire. Appreciate it. We'll come back to you later in the show, no doubt. Back to the studio now, joined by Nigel Nelson, our senior political commentator, and the chief executive operator of Electoral Calculus, Martin Bax, to go through some of the data. Let's get to you, Nigel Nelson. We need to talk about Wales.
Yeah.
The Labour Party is staring down the barrel of an historic evisceration. There's no other word for it. Annihilation, call it what you want. We can argue about semantics. politics, they are in grave peril. Quick update on the latest scores on the doors there. I'm hearing Plaid Cymru on 24. Reform on 19, Labour on 6. They've dropped 21. Conservatives just on 4. They've dropped 10. Well, let's now go live to Wales, where the Welsh First Minister is having her seat declared.
Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, Elin Jones. Sef 2, seat 2, Reform UK, Susan Clare Archibald. Sef 3, seat 3, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, Kerry Ferguson. Sef 4, seat 4, Ceidwadwyr Cymreig, Welsh Conservatives, Paul Windsor-Davies. Sef 5, seat 5, Reform UK, Paul Marr. Sef 6, seat 6, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, Anna Nicol. A thrwy hyn, gan bod yr ymgeiswyr hynny wedi hethol yn briodol fel aelodau o'r Senedd dros etholaeth Ceredigion Pembro. And I hereby declare that the said candidates are duly elected as members of the Senedd for the Ceredigion Pembro's constituency. Hoffwn yn awr wahodd i'r llwyfan y 6 ymgeisydd sydd wedi ei hethol. I would now like to invite the 6 elected candidates to the stage. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd. Thank you all very much. So, os yna beth i ni wedi cytuno bod yr weinwyr y grwpiau... there iawn. Okay. So, beth i ni wedi cytuno bod yr weinwyr y grwpiau yn mynd i hanner chi. Felly, dechrau gyda Geri.
Diolch yn fawr iawn i bawb sydd yma prynawn yma'n gwrando ar y canlyniad.
Okay, just to cut through some of the Welsh language there, some of the complexity of the Welsh system in a nutshell. The Welsh First Minister has lost her seat. Tom Harwood, you're over there waving. You know what you're talking about on this because it's very complicated. Tom, do you mind picking up?
Shall I come
over, Tom?
Why not? Let's do some live television magic.
Because you're over there. You know your onions when it comes to the Senedd.
So, Martin, it's called the D'Hont method. It's the same method that was used when members of the European Parliament, like you yourself, were elected, and indeed has been used in Wales in the previous method, is used in Scotland as well for those additional members. Basically what happens is, in a given multi-member constituency, all of the votes for the parties are totted up, and these are votes for parties rather than votes for individuals. The top voted party will have a certain number of votes. The top voted party gets 1 seat, and then their vote gets halved. And then, if it's still the top party of the list of all of those parties, it gets another seat. It's likely not, because they've just halved those votes. So the next top party then gets a seat, and then gets their vote halved. And you repeat the process until you fill up all those 6 seats in each of the 16 multi-member constituencies.
But the net effect is that the seats the party gets is roughly proportional to the votes it received.
Right. And the key thing here, there'll be the lingering, horrible moment, look, where the camera is now about to zoom in on there she is, understandably with a face like a wet weekend in Aberystwyth. We have the former Welsh First Minister, Eleanor Morgan, for the Labour Party, who's lost her seat. A totemic moment. This means it's curtains for Labour in Wales. There she is, looking absolutely, again, like a wet weekend in Barry Island.
She looks bereft, Martin, and this is a huge moment in politics here. What will she do now? Will she follow Anna Sawar and say it's time that Keir Starmer quit? So far, we have left-wing Labour MPs saying it's time to set out a timetable. Will she go further? We're told she won't say anything now about Keir Starmer, but all eyes on her for over the next few hours.
Nigel Nelson, the look on her face. Nobody wants to be at these counts. If you've lost your seat in such a public and humiliating way, you just, I mean, I've been there. Your legs go. You want the ground to swallow you up.
It's a horrible experience, yes.
And the look on her face is one of thunder, humiliation, ritual shame. I'm not gloating about this.
No, there's a personal side to it. She becomes the first minister to have actually lost a seat.
And she will no doubt be when she's out of that room, she'll probably be spitting feathers, she'll be incandescent, because this should not have happened to the Labour Party in Wales.
Hang on.
It has happened.
It's her failure, Martin. Labour's been in charge for a century in Wales. They've been in charge in Wales in terms of the Assembly. It's all your ex-MP blubbing. This ex-politician blubbing. This politician has failed the people of Wales, like so many of Labour have, and now she's out. And why on earth are we shedding tears for her?
And yet, is it not the case that many of these politicians in Wales, like the politicians in Scotland from the Labour Party that have lost their seats, and indeed Anna Sarwar, who people thought would be the first Minister of Scotland and was polling in first place in Scotland until the Labour government got in Westminster, and then suddenly these politicians' fortunes crash with the fortunes of the Prime Minister. I think if I were Enulad Morgan standing there on that stage thinking about what to say, I might think I've just been stabbed in the back by the Prime Minister. Because if it hadn't been for the Prime Minister's enormous crash, I mean, after only a few months in office, just this horrendous drop-off in the polls, he's torn down all of his candidates with him.
She's also Baroness Morgan of Ely. She sits in the House of Lords, Martin. She'll be back here in the House of Lords coming on your show. So all the tears you're shedding for people, this is democracy, and these are people who have let down the people of Wales. They're paying the consequences.
Chris Hope, I stand tried of having some humility and humanity. I stand tried and been found guilty by you, Judge Chopper. All I'm saying is, you know, in her eyes, in her party's eyes, the fact that the leader of the Welsh Labour Party has just been torpedoed out of existence is something that shouldn't have happened. Whoever you blame is up to you.
Of course, yeah.
But
there was always human side of politics.
You get yourself involved in politics, and let's not dance on your grave when you lose. I
think that this is democracy. If you don't serve the people of Wales properly, if you have a failing NHS service, the lowest average wages in the country, issues with immigration in some parts of the country, that's what happens.
And she had a more graceful bow out than Vaughan Gething, her predecessor.
Yes.
OK, thank you very, very much indeed. We are now bang on approaching the hour of 5 o'clock. It is now 5 p.m. What an astonishing day in politics. Good afternoon on this Friday. It is now 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. And here's what's coming up on today's show.
I'm not going to walk away from those challenges and plunge the country into chaos.
Yes, the Prime Minister has vowed to fight on, with echoes perhaps of Comical Alley. He's saying he will not quit as he takes responsibility for Labour's abysmal local council results. Starmageddon so far.
I think there is a real threat that Nigel Farage could become Prime Minister, but that will be determined by whether or not this government can deliver the change the British public want to see.
Must have hurt him to say it, but he did. Labour Minister Steve Reid admits there is a real possibility that Nigel Farage will now become the next Prime Minister as Labour faces a local election wipeout across England. Now, so far, the Labour Party has lost 58% of the seats it has been trying to defend. At one point in the night, it was 83%. Now, with more than 50 of the 136 council results in so far, the party appears to be losing the grip on its historic working-class heartlands. And there's yet further misery for the Prime Minister down on the coast as the number of illegal immigrants who have crossed the channel by small boat now smashes through that totemic 200,000 mark. Now, earlier on today, Nigel Farage said the best was yet to come, and he was proved right less than 1 hour ago, because historically, with echoes of that great Brexit night, it's now been confirmed that Reform UK has taken Sunderland Council out of Labour hands for the first time in over 50 years, a truly historic moment for both parties.
Labour are being wiped out by Reform in many of their most traditional areas, and what you're going to see later on today is the Conservative Party being wiped out in their heartlands like Essex.
PM Sir Keir Starmer says he's going nowhere, but is his fate in his own hands? Cabinet ministers this weekend will be wondering just that.
He said Conservatives are coming back, and here we are.
And meanwhile, it's been a mixed night for Kemi Badenoch's Conservative Party, losing well over 220 council seats thus far. But the good news is they have taken Westminster, Wandsworth and Bexley. Some good news for the Conservatives.
He's doing a fantastic job. He's led our party to become the largest it has ever been in the party's history. I love working side by side with Ed. We make a strong leadership team, but he is the right person to lead us into the next election.
Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats are up 29 council seats and they're celebrating, but please, no lycra or paddle boards as they head for the 8th set of local election gains in a row.
That I know Zoe Garbett as Mayor of Hackney, and in fact so many people who run councils or indeed Green councillors will be holding the government to account from a local level to say it's outrageous that decades of austerity have stripped councils of funding.
Is London calling for the Green Party? We're expecting results in this next hour to come thick and fast in London. And Zach Polanski's Green Party has had a huge victory in London with its candidate there with the interesting hair, elected as the Mayor of Hackney, ousting the Labour Party. Reaction to all of this and much, much more throughout the rest of today's action-packed show. Welcome to the show. What an astonishing day it's been already. A nightmare on Downing Street for Sir Keir Starmer. There's no way of dressing up. A nightmare in Wales, a nightmare in Sunderland, in Newcastle, all over the country. The industrial heartlands, the working class base, totally crumbling. And we start the hour this time with an echo of that in Wales. The Welsh First Minister has lost her seat. Labour Party. And for reaction, I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' political editor Chris Hope, GBNews' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, the CEO of Electoral Calculus Martin Baxter, and of course Tom Howard, who came in to save the day by explaining the complexities of this D'Hondt system. More on that in a moment. Chris Hope, nightmare after nightmare on Downing Street for the Prime Minister. The latest one in the valleys of Wales. Boom! Labour Party bombed out of existence.
Real worries here, and totemic to lose Eleanor Morgan, of course, Baroness Morgan of Ely, as she will become when she returns to the House of Lords. Now she's out of elected politics. Is it a concern, a worry for Labour? What will she do now? I wasn't seen to be an outspoken person. I think Anna Sarwar spoke out in February to try and jettison the dead weight of Starmer from his ticket to try and ensure he had a better chance of beating the SNP. Well, that clearly hasn't worked in Scotland. So maybe Lady Morgan won't feel she has to speak out against the PM because it'll do her no good now because it's finished. But what will other politicians do, other members of his cabinet? The PM has said this morning, and all we know, it's all he said at 8 this morning, and since then we think he's been in his country home in Chequers. He said that I'm not going to walk away and plunge the country into chaos. I'm convinced that this can and will get better. His ally, Steve Reid, was out at lunchtime. He was saying we can't just kind of doom scroll through prime ministers like the Tory party did, and so they are intent on fighting on. But will that be enough? The left wing,
Comic alley.
Well, yes.
That's what it's like. We will keep on pounding them.
Well, that was the spokesman for Saddam Hussein in the 91 Gulf War.
And it became a meme of pretending there's no trouble.
When Baghdad was blowing
when you've basically been napalmed out of existence.
That's right.
And that's what's happening with the Labour Party. They can say, we're going to carry on. The people don't want to doom scroll. The country's doom scrolling its way towards oblivion, financial oblivion. But how 200,000th illegal immigrant arrives this morning on our shores. The country's already in chaos.
Mostly on the Tory watch, let's be clear on that one. And also with this, you have to look at it and go, how would it help if you had Angela Rayner in charge when she fell foul of the ministerial standard last September? How would it help?
If you need to quickly cut across to you, here we go. The Welsh First Minister has not only lost her seat, and that's Baroness Eleanor Morgan, but she has now announced she will resign as the leader of Welsh Labour after her party suffered heavy defeat, saying, I take responsibility for the Labour result in Wales. Fresh pinch of spice there. She's taken responsibility. She isn't pushing upwards and blaming Sir Keir Starmer on this. just to repeat that line, Baroness Eluned Morgan, the previous First Minister of Wales, has now resigned. Nigel Nelson, a further blow to the Labour Party, dropping like flies.
Yeah, I mean, you would expect her to resign after losing her seat, so I don't think that comes as a huge surprise. And also, the statement that she just released there suggests she won't now call for Keir Starmer's resignation. What is surprising about these elections, both in England, Scotland and Wales, is they're meant to be local elections, and just how unlocal they appear to be. It seems to be a verdict on Keir Starmer. Now, if this voting is actually an anti-Labour vote rather than a pro-reform vote, that gives Labour a chance to actually claw its way back. If it's a pro-reform vote, it's much more difficult for them.
OK, let's quickly get to Downing Street now, almost like the scene of the crime. GB News' political correspondent Olivia Utley joins us there live. The Prime Minister having another huge blow delivered now. We hear that the First Minister of Wales resigned. It's turning into nightmare after nightmare for the Prime Minister, and he's scuttled off to Chequers.
Well, absolutely. The blows are now coming thick and fast for the Prime Minister. This morning, it looked as though he would hold on for the foreseeable future, with David Lammy and John Healey, Cabinet Ministers, both going on the airwaves to support him. Now, the Welsh First Minister has lost her seat, and a number of influential backbenchers have said that not that Keir Starmer needs to go right this moment, but that he cannot lead the party into the next election. We've had David Baines, we've had Sarah Owen, we've had Conor Naismith, we've had Louise Hay, former Transport Minister under Keir Starmer, all saying that he must go. Then you've got the usual names, the John McDonnells, the Diane Abbotts. This is a body of MPs which is building up, and I think we can only expect it to carry on building as these results continue to trickle through. The problem for all of these MPs, of course, is that there's no one waiting in the wings. Andy Burnham clearly doesn't have a seat in Westminster, and it is quite a long route for him to get a seat in Westminster, involving winning a by-election in Manchester, where Labour did very, very badly last night. Then you've got Wes Streeting, doesn't look as though he's going to put his head above the parapet anytime soon. Angela Rayner is a bit more of an unknown quantity, but basically none of the main contenders seem quite ready to stick the knife in. So we're in this strange state of status where Labour MPs are saying that Keir Starmer can't lead the country into the next election, can't lead the party into the next election, but they don't quite know who will. I think that Keir Starmer is a lame duck Prime Minister.
Yes,
he will be here, he might be here for a while, but he doesn't have much power now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much there, Olivia, joining us from Downing Street. Appreciate your time. Let's get back to the studio for some quick reaction to that. Tom Harwood, you're across the names, so are you, Chris, but Tom, get to you. Just to recap for our viewers and listeners, Labour MPs now queuing up to say Sir Keir Starmer has to go. Last night, Ed Miliband, front page of the Times, Barry Gardner, front page of the Express, Jonathan Brash in Hartlepool came in when his missus lost her seat on the council. Who else is now saying the Prime Minister must go?
Well, of course, we heard earlier from Louise Hay. She's been quite a big voice. She was Transport Secretary at the start of this government before she ran into some problems with the historic conviction over a mobile phone. And yet, she has been someone that's been providing a bit of intellectual ballast to what an alternative to the Starmer programme might look like. She's been giving some interviews recently. Perhaps that's not a surprise. Sarah Owen, quite a mild-mannered MP, been in since 2019. Lots of friends across the House, calling for Starmer to go. Really significant there, because you don't think that she's one of the rent-a-gobs amongst the Labour MPs. There are some MPs that you can guarantee you can drop them a call and they'll give you a spicy quote for a news article or something else. No, Sarah Owen is not one of those people, and that is indicative of widespread disquiet on the Labour benches. Conor Naismith and David Baines, both new MPs in 2024, so significant there that they are at the start of their careers. Many MPs at the start of their careers would think they need to stay close to number 10 for advancement. They need to stay close to number 10 if they want to make anything of their careers. They clearly think staying close to this number 10 is bad for their careers, because this Prime Minister is not long for this world, or that they would lose their seats if he was long for this world. Either way, it's bad for Keir Starmer.
Chris, how quickly could this reach some form of critical mass and meltdown? It's starting to feel now that there is this tipping point. Things would happen quickly. The dissatisfaction is real. You know, you can dress this up however you like, and you can say that Wales has been managed terribly. Its NHS is terrible. Labour Party there has done a terrible job. But nevertheless, as the names start to fall, the pressure must mount on the Prime Minister.
But yes, that's true. And because the PM was out at 8 a.m. saying he's not going to walk away from that, that was almost a challenge to anyone who thought differently to him. And now they're emerging by the end of the day. So we'll look at the language, though. For example, Sarah Owen says, unless Keir Starmer delivers tangible change, ... he can't lead us into another election. So it's slightly conditional, which means there's a chance of the PM saving the day with his speech he's giving on Monday, when he'll lay out how he is the change merchant. I see you laughing for listeners of GBNews on the radio.
I honestly think Keir Starmer would give £1,000 in cash to everybody in Sunderland and they wouldn't vote for him. I think that's where we're at. What kind of speech can turn this around?
Well, he'll give a speech on Monday and he'll try and save the day. So
the speaking is hardly his strongest point.
It does seem conditional. Let's not. The numbers are big. 81 Labour MPs required to back someone to mount a challenge against Keir Starmer.
And yet we repeatedly hear that Wes Streeting has 81 MPs, that Angela Rayner has 81 MPs. We keep hearing briefings that Andy Burnham has a number of people on the NEC that would allow him to stand in a by-election, and by the way, has 81 MPs. I mean, there were 411 Labour MPs elected at the last election. A lot of 81s go into 411.
Right, gentlemen, the man of the moment, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, has just spoken in St Helens a short moment ago, and this is what the Reform UK leader had to say.
Heartlands in the northwest, Yorkshire and the northeast, that we were going to achieve staggering results. How do I know that? Well, partly it's polling, but actually it's just me arriving and walking down streets over the course of the last 9 weeks and getting an amazing reaction. And these are historic vote shifts. You can see seat after seat where the Labour vote share is down 35% and we're up 37%. It's a direct switching of Labour votes to Reform.
I think you've already been asked this, but are you Prime Minister in waiting now?
Well, I described yesterday like Beecher's Brook. You have to clear Beecher's Brook to win the Grand National. But you know something? There are more fences to come.
Do you see this as the start of reform knocking down that red wall, particularly here in the northwest?
I think there have been warning signs for Labour in the red wall. I can think back to European elections for UKIP. I can think back to the referendum. You know, with a Labour Party that strongly endorsed Remain in many of these areas, most of them actually voting Leave. I can think of Boris Johnson's incursion into the red wall in 2019. What we've achieved in the last 24 hours goes way further than anything the Conservatives did then or would ever be able to achieve. Look at our results in Tameside, Salford, areas like that. So no, I think this is frankly, these voters have come to Reform and they want to stick with us.
Well, you mentioned some places there. You are doing well in areas that voted for Brexit 10 years ago, which isn't surprising. Are you doing well, though, with the base, and basically are you cutting through to the rest of the areas, the non-Brexit voting areas?
Well, there's no political party that cuts through in every single area or achieves great results in every single area.
You'll need to win an election, certainly more of them.
Well, actually, there were far more Brexit voting constituencies in 2016 in the country than there were non-Brexit voting constituencies. Look, you know, Brexit was forget Brexit, but think of it as a mindset. And if you believe that Britain is broken, that it needs fundamental change and reform, then we're the guys out there saying it. What I think is really interesting is the old idea that a party is on the right and it attracts votes in a certain area, or it's on the left, and for socio-economic reasons it attracts votes in that area. We've just blown that apart overnight. The old ideas of left and right have literally been blown apart in the last 24 hours.
How are you going to celebrate?
So I'm off now to Essex, and there'll be a big gathering in Essex. We've had very, very dramatic wins in the Conservative strongest county, or was until yesterday strongest county, with over half the shadow cabinet representing seats there. We've done well in the county elections, we've done well in the unitaries. I'm off to Essex for the evening.
And actually, I didn't ask you, it's quite an obvious one. You've come up to St Helens, presumably. Well, what are you expecting from the St Helens result?
Well, given that the Labour MP David Baines from St Helens North, as the count's not yet completed, has called on the Prime Minister to resign, I think was a clue. The last I heard, there were 5 full results in, and all 5 thus far had gone to Reform. So I'll say it, we're going to win majority control of St Helens.
OK, we will find out shortly. Nigel Farage, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's Nigel Farage there a short moment ago in St Helens. Now, there's been an update on the situation in Wales. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, he's broken his silence. He's paid tribute to Eleanor Morgan as, quote, a formidable First Minister and tireless champion for Wales, as she failed to win a Senedd seat and announced her decision to resign as the Welsh Labour leader a short moment ago. That's the equivalent of Big Sam getting a thank you, isn't it, from the director of football. Thank you for your services, now clear off. But on a serious point, Sir Keir Starmer paid tribute to Eleanor Morgan as a formidable First Minister and tireless champion for Wales after she quit basically as quickly as David Cameron did after Brexit. Quit and has now been consigned to history, a disaster in Wales. Let's get back to the studio. I'm delighted to be joined by GBNews' political editor Chris Hope, GBNews' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, the CEO of Electoral Calculus, and of course Martin Baxter, and of course GBNews' deputy political editor and presenter and graphics powerhouse Tom Harwood. Let's start with the fact, let's temper this enthusiasm of reform's high watermark here. A poll has just come in analysing Martin Baxter, what this would all mean if there were a general election today. And it isn't pointing towards the wipeouts that we're seeing at council level. It's pointing towards a hung parliament. And it's pointing towards something we talk about a lot on this channel, the likelihood that to achieve a majority, Nigel Farage would have to work with the Conservative Party. Talk us through it.
Yes, I mean, the reason people are questioning Keir Starmer's leadership at Westminster is because Westminster MPs are nervous about losing their seats, and they've got, obviously, quite a lot to be nervous about at the moment. There's a couple of ways of doing it. There's an equivalent national vote share. There's also national opinion polls. But looking at either of those, the message is the same, that Reform would be the largest party. Nigel Farage would be likely to be Prime Minister, but short of an overall majority. Reform would have 250 seats, that sort of thing. But Reform and the Conservatives together would have a majority. So although there's no guarantee that would happen, it would be the most obvious coalition. And political experts here might tell me of another one. But you could have Kemi Badenoch as Deputy Prime Minister as the supporting act in a reform.
There's that great Mike Tyson quote, everyone's got a plan until they're punched in the face. And with this, nobody wants to do a deal until they have to do a deal.
Well, exactly. Martin's working there. Will the numbers make sense? Why can't the Tories and Reform get together? We know why they can't get together until the election, because they don't get on, they slag each other off, the teams around them can't bear each other. But you are right. Come the election, when the new maths make sense. I remember vividly when Jeremy Hunt, the day after the 2010 election, he deleted his entire Twitter account and went into coalition with the Lib Dem because he was a Lib Dem attack dog. This happens.
Just to give you political science fiction, the other side, Chris, if it isn't Conservative Reform, suppose all the other parties decide Reform is not on, it has to be Conservative plus Labour plus Lib Dem plus Green plus SNP, and that I think would be a rather unwieldy coalition.
Yeah. I heard one.
I think a lot of us would be heading for dinghies for France if that were the case.
But also it runs up against a cephalological rule, which is you usually get the smallest number of parties possible to create a coalition. The more parties you need to add together to a coalition, the more unwieldy it is, the less long it might last. I am reminded, however, of what happened in May 2010 when David Cameron and Nick Clegg had to put a brave face on in the Downing Street garden. They held a press conference. Chris, you were probably there.
I wasn't there, but I was watching on TV. Yeah.
And at one point, someone amongst the press lobby asked David Cameron, do you remember during the campaign when you were asked, what's your favourite joke? And you replied, Nick Clegg.
Gentlemen, let's move on. I've got my next guest waiting patiently in the wings. It's the former Labour Party councillor, Simon Greaves. Simon, welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure to have your company. Simon, there's no sugarcoating this. It's been a Starmageddon. Is it time for the Prime Minister to take the bullet?
Well, it's horrendous, and the Prime Minister and the Cabinet are going to have to take this on the chin. I would say no, and there doesn't appear to be a great clamour of candidates waiting to remove the Prime Minister, I have to say. And the other MPs are saying, oh, there's got to be a timeline. But the truth is they don't know what to do either, to be honest, at this point in time, I would say. And also for those Labour candidates that lost and some that are winning, quite frankly, the charge of the Light Brigade had a better chance of success than what they have got. So I doff my cap to them.
Simon, I totally agree. They went valiantly into battle, but it was a forlorn battle. And that is because you hear it all over the country. We've seen today Sunderland, Newcastle, Wales, places ostensibly that were forever Labour have simply cut the umbilical cord. Is that because the party per se has failed, or does the buck stop with the Prime Minister? It can throw in this government has got a higher body count than a Schwarzenegger movie. I've been saying that for a long time. But if the body to fall next were to be Sir Keir Starmer politically, could that save the party, or is the rot just too deep? The party's over.
I would say that the lead-in to today's terrible results and the results from last night has been a long time coming. The groundwork has been laid for years and years and years for all the stars to align with the results that we see. And there's no doubt that Reform are formidable operators, and so is Nigel Farage. But for the Labour Party to think that we'll get rid of the Prime Minister, get someone else in, and then it will all be fine is fantasy. The country do not believe that the Labour Party is on the same page as them. There are some fundamental questions that need to be asked, and that can't be done by rushing into a leadership election. There are a number of traps that are laid bare. Some MPs seem to be quite content to fall straight into them, and they need to be very cautious because they will be doing themselves a disservice, their communities a disservice in the process. There's a lot of thought that needs to be put into where the party goes from here.
OK, thank you. Simon Greaves, just got some breaking news for you here. Perhaps get your reaction to that. That is, another Labour Party MP has now called for Sir Keir Starmer to go. Simon Ofer, the MP for Stroud in Gloucestershire, part of the world I know well, my family live down there, has joined a growing list of Labour MPs demanding Sir Keir Starmer must go. Simon, are you expecting the numbers could be added to this? There could soon be a critical mass of opposition saying from the backbenchers, Keir, well, please do.
Well, there will be a number of MPs that continue over the weekend to make these comments. The truth is that no Prime Minister will set out a timetable for their departure because at that point the game is over. We know that. And so the Prime Minister has got to do a damn sight more than a stump speech on a Monday to convince MPs that he's got a grasp of the issues and is able to turn this around, because many MPs are sceptical, and many party members equally are absolutely furious about the position that the party's been led to.
Simon Greaves, I can sense the fury in your voice. I can see the fury in your voice. Chris, you're itching to get in here.
Simon Greaves, there are two things happening here, it seems. You've got the moderate Labour MPs are saying, unless you change things and make things happen quickly, i.e. a speech on Monday that changes things, you can't lead us to the next election. And the left-wing MPs are saying, set out a timetable. So the backbenches are restless on both wings, it seems.
You're going to try and get the clip?
Well, they absolutely are. And so there's a huge job of work that has to be done. And people within the party are going to be sceptical as to whether the Prime Minister is going to be able to step up to the plate and sort this out, because it's an almighty mess. And the only way forward actually is together. And will the Prime Minister be able to convince MPs to pull in the same direction? That, I'm afraid, is a job that we'll have to wait and see.
Well, Simon Greaves, I think I can sense your belief on that. Seems like the party's over for Keir Starmer. But look, thank you for joining us on this difficult day. I sincerely appreciate your time. I really do. Former Labour councillor Simon Greaves, thank you, sir. And I hope you can try and have a restful weekend. Now, let's take a look at Wales. Of course, Welsh First Minister Eluned Morgan has been defeated by Plaid Cymru and has dramatically now resigned.
Welsh Labour has today suffered a catastrophic result. It ends a century of
Labour winning in Wales, and the party will need to take a really hard look at itself and understand the depth of the challenge that we face. I've lost my seat here in Ceredigion-Pembroke, and I will be stepping down as leader of Welsh Labour.
Well, the embodiment of resignation there, just like a popped lilo. That was the former Welsh First Minister Eleanor Morgan. GBNews' chief political correspondent Catherine Forster is there for us in Wales, almost at the scene of the crime, if you like, where that took place. Catherine Forster, a face like a wet weekend on Barry Island. She quit.
Yes, and well, she might, because as she said, this has been catastrophic for Labour. Well, Wales has been a country that has been Labour for over 100 years. This result would have been unthinkable not very long ago at all. Just to run you through the numbers in this constituency, Plaid way ahead on nearly 32,000 votes, then Reform on 23,000. Labour got just 6,500 votes, just 6,500. In fact, they only beat the Greens by literally a couple of hundred votes. Eleanor Morgan clearly devastated. One thing she said that I thought was interesting, she said, we need to go back to being the party of the working class. She acknowledged that people wanted change. She said that change was not fast enough, but there were a couple of warnings I thought about reform. She said there are no simple answers, and she said we all need to understand the anger, but we need to heed the anger, not feed the anger. She congratulated Plaid Cymru, who seem to be the biggest winners in Wales, although Reform also doing very, very, very well. And my colleague Meg Cope spoke to Dan Thomas, the Reform leader in Wales, a little bit earlier. Let's have a look at some of what he had to say.
But look, we tried to maximise our votes. At the end of the day, that's been our goal, maximise our vote, and I think we've done a really good job on that, especially when you compare to where we came from 5 years ago. And we're a dominant force now in Wales. I still think it's possible for us to lead a government. We've got lots of constituencies yet to declare, and I'm hearing encouraging news from those. But of course we would. And who would we work with? Anyone who will help us deliver our manifesto commitments. We've not ruled anyone out. Unlike the other parties, we've not ruled anyone out.
So Reform clearly very happy, doing well in Wales, as they are across the country. But look, it's not very often that you see history being made, and I really feel that the Welsh First Minister losing her seat was such a moment. It feels like an earthquake here. It feels that Labour, Wales has fundamentally changed. And as Eleanor Morgan said, the age of two-party dominance is dead.
Truly is a huge moment. Remember how it felt when the SNP became the dominant force. Parties there, traditional parties withering away. That's been the moment in Wales. History has been made there. The former First Minister losing her seat and dramatically resigning. Thank you very much, Catherine Forster. You were there for history, a grim part of history, but nevertheless, you were there. Let's get my next guest in now. Has been waiting very patiently, and that's the Reform UK councillor in Ormskirk East in West Lancashire, and that is Simon Evans. Simon, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company on this day. Thanks for your patience, sir, but a lot of news is coming at us thick and fast. Simon, first, let's get your reflections on what clearly has been a very, very good set of results for Reform UK.
Yeah, well, Martin, it's been nothing short of a landslide. I mean, I'm the deputy leader of Lancashire County Council, and let me give you some figures in Lancashire. Blackburn, we won 9 out of 17 seats. Burnley, 11 out of 15. Chorley, 7 out of 14. Highburn, 8 out of 11. Pendle, 4 out of 10. Preston, 5 out of 16. And West Lancashire, 7 out of 15. So that's 56 new councillors from 98 seats. That's 57%. I mean, that is just an incredible wins across Lancashire, and not only Lancashire, but the Northwest. And we could talk about Sunderland, we could talk about Newcastle, Wales, so on and so forth. Been an absolute landslide, and it's the death knell in Labour, I think.
And yet, Simon Evans, if I may temper your enthusiasm momentarily, sir, if I may, and you may have heard us reflecting on a poll that's just landed about what the results mean. Yeah. If the results that were achieved, as impressive as they are for Reform UK, last night, today, if that vote share were achieved in the general election, it would point towards a hung parliament where Nigel Farage, Reform UK, would be the dominant force, but reliant upon a pact with the Conservatives. Now, I know you're probably going to roll your eyes and go, here we go again, it's that old chestnut, but it won't go away. It's a story that won't go away. And as I said to you before, nobody wants to do a deal until they have to do a deal. Do you think it's possible?
Well, you see, Martin, I understand where you're coming from, but let's talk about polling. When we stood last May for county council election, we had 0 councillors. Now, the polling put us to have maximum of 22 seats. We stormed it with 53 seats, absolutely nowhere near any of the polling. So polling is polling. What we can say today, it's just been an absolute landslide. And you know, for Keir Starmer to come out and say he doesn't want to resign because he doesn't want to put the country into chaos, I think the boat sailed on the chaos bit already, hasn't it? Because he's put the country in chaos for the last 18 months.
Well, talking about the boat sailing, 200,000th illegal immigrant arrived today, almost. Yeah. How is it possible for Keir Starmer's Newsday to get any worse? The answer is, feast your eyes upon the chaos down there in Dover. Simon Evans, thank you very much, mate, for joining us. We have to move on. We've got a ton to squeeze in. Now, just to quickly add, we have had some feedback from the Scarlet Pimpernel of Downing Street, Keir Starmer. He's finally surfaced. He's scuttled off to Chequers. Who can blame him? I'd be hiding in the shed if I was him. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, paid tribute to Ellen Ed Morgan as a formidable First Minister and tireless champion for Wales after she failed to win a Senedd seat and then dramatically, almost within moments, announced her decision to resign as the Welsh Labour leader. I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' political correspondent editor, Chris Hope, GBNews' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson, the CEO of Electoral Calculus, Martin Baxter, and, of course, GBNews' deputy political editor, Tom Harwood. Chris, let's start with you. The bad news is just relentless for this government today.
It is. We knew it was coming. We haven't seen the scale of it yet, so I'm interested to know where Martin's forecasting is. Some said 1,200 losses for Labour in the English counties. Could go as high as 1,800, 2,000. Then it gets very, very difficult for Sir Keir Starmer. What appears to be happening is Labour MPs are reacting in different ways, and there are two groups. The left-wing Labour MPs who don't like him much are saying, set out a time scale to leave office and we'll get someone in who we like. That might well be the great Manchester London Andy Burnham, because if he wins, we get an MP, or it could be Angela Rayner. The other group are saying, change direction or you can't lead us into the next election. And that's what's happening here.
And I wonder if, because the day isn't over by any means in terms of the bad news for the Labour Party, gentlemen, next we can feast our eyes upon London. So the turquoise tidal wave we've seen across the Midlands, across Suffolk, across Essex, across Sunderland, across Newcastle, might now turn into a green wave, declaring this afternoon we have Hackney, we have Enfield, Barnet, Brent, we have later on Lambeth, we have Southwark, we have Newham. Tom Harwood, these are all areas the Green Party will greatly fancy. I live in one of these areas. The Green Party ground game has been utterly relentless. And in Brixton, where my cousin lives, I was attempting to watch Nottingham Forest win again, and the pub was full, swarmed with Green Party activists. They're gunning for these seats in London. Today could get much worse for Keir Starmer.
I don't know what it is about GB News presenters, but I'm in a Green Target Ward too, and the number of leaflets I've had through from the Labour Party and the Green Party, they've been going at each other very, very hard. I've even had a personalised sort of pretend handwritten letter written by a resident in Bristol saying, I hopefully voted Green last time and look what they did to my council, they ruined it, the bins weren't collected, all the rest of it. But no, ultimately, the Greens have had a slow start in this election so far, only picking up 218 seats. I say only, it's an impressive total, but compared to the 1,000 that the Reform Party has picked up, it's not quite comparable. example. But yes, these London boroughs that are seemingly ridiculously slow at counting, almost Californian levels of lethargy when it comes to how slow they are at counting these votes. But we should see some Green gains there. How many councils they'll win? I think it's pretty sure they'll win Hackney, but I don't know how many more they'll get.
Well, just on that, Labour's confirming they've won the mayor of Newham despite a strong push from the Greens, including a visit twice by Zach Polanski. So it's interesting how...
I think Tories are crowing about retaining the Croydon mayor as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, because at the moment the Green surge is the dog that is not yet barking very loudly. That they did win in Hackney, but it's only a small sign. But in Camden, Keir Starmer's own home borough, where the Greens could have done very well, they've gained 2 seats, Labour have lost 3. It's not actually very big news.
Although one of those 2 seats was the leader of the council, who initially thought he might lose his seat to the Lib Dems, did a chicken run to a different seat to try and hold it for Labour and lost it to the Greens.
Nigel Nelson, as a Labour man yourself, this is the nightmare scenario. You're in this pincer movement of death. We saw it before with other political parties, but this is now all eyes on the next hour. Will that Green peril also be nibbling away at Sir Keir Starmer as the turquoise peril did elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, that it is certainly possible in London that the Greens will do well. Keir Starmer has been squeezed from both sides, the right with Reform, the left with the Greens. We're now, the whole thing is British politics has changed. It's changed completely. We're now in this 5-party system. It won't be long before people will start demanding proportional representation across the entire country.
Well, they always say that when they can't win.
Well, exactly. But bear in mind that the first-past-the-post system is the one that actually services 2-party systems, not 5.
Yeah, but the first-past-the-post system, Chris, was always designed to keep, that centuries-old changing of the guard from red to blue, and everybody wants proportional representation when you're a small party, because you want to be like you,
including Nigel Farage. Yeah, when he started off Reform UK, that was about reform into the PR, into PR.
Same with the Greens, same with the Lib Dems. The small parties want to get their toes under the table.
But if you get coalition anyway under the first-past-the-post system, which is what we're predicting at the moment it would happen if this was a general election, then you might as well have a proper proportional representation system.
We are not built for coalitions. We don't do it. We had one go, didn't we? And no one really liked him much.
2010 was good.
Was it good?
Yeah. I thought that.
The Tories and Lib Dems hated it, I would say.
The Lib Dems were able to temper the Tory excesses.
But if these coalitions rely upon leaders sitting down in a mature manner and breaking the bread, well, the coalition that would need to be done, the system, is Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage, who can barely stand to look at each other at the moment.
Well, post-election, they may have to. We saw that, as I say, with the Tories and Lib Dems. The nature of, you've got 5 more years of the left-wing parties forming a group together, or can we do something together? And they do. If you look at their policy agenda, they agree on most things. In fact, I think Kemi Badenoch would say that Nigel Farage is actually more left-wing than she is, certainly with some of the benefit policies.
OK, it's 20-6. Let's have a quick roundup, shall we, of the scores on the doors thus far. Reform UK, by far away the biggest beneficiary of the local elections, now on 952 seats, put on 950. Liberal Democrats in second on 648. They've picked up 91 seats along the way. Labour Party, it's been a disaster. A complete disaster. They're on 618, but they've lost 780 seats. Conservatives on 524, but they've dropped 452. It's been a bad night for them in the round. Green Party now just about to break through the 300 mark. They've picked up 217. And the independents, we wondered how many of these there might be about. Those Gaza independents, the pro-Gazas in Birmingham. Well, the answer is 108, although that number is down 11. I think we've seen quite a few independents across the nation tipping into the Greens, tipping into Reform UK. But it's been a bad night for the establishment parties, Chris.
It has, but look at that list there of the number of councillors. We're not anywhere near the number that puts Keir Starmer in jeopardy. That's 1,800 or more. We're only on 952. Of course, many more still to declare. Some forecasters saying only 1,200. Don't forget, in the second year of Tony Blair's first time in office, they had disastrous so-called mid-term elections, local elections, losing 1,100 council seats. It has happened before, and then, of course, they win landslides in short order. And that is what I think this weekend Keir Starmer will be hanging on to as he contemplates his future.
Although it's worth saying that that was from a higher base.
Yes, it was.
Because ultimately a lot of these councils were actually elected last in 2021.
Yes, but
which was the high point of Boris. So comparing, for example, early Blair, where you had the entirety of the 1990s, where the Labour Party was building up a massive buffer of councillors that, frankly, they could afford to lose. There are some projections that it could even be the case that after today, the Labour Party stops being the largest party in local government. If they lose more than about 1,500 seats, the Tories, surprisingly, become the largest party of local government, as long as they don't lose too many themselves.
Yes. OK, gentlemen, I've got a fascinating guest now. Could be, perhaps surprisingly, one of the most powerful men in local politics. The independent councillor successfully re-elected on Wandsworth Borough Council, Malcolm Grimston. Malcolm, welcome to the show. I'm so glad we've got you on because you hold the balance of power in Wandsworth, if I'm correct in saying. There are 8 Labour, there are 8 Conservatives, and then there's you, and you're the man with the plan.
It's 29 Conservative, 28 and me.
Right.
And so to reach the 30 votes necessary for a majority, or to exactly balance the council, I sort of get to choose who the next council leader is. Just as I was looking forward to a nice sort of retirement back in my nice little council ward.
So that means that you found yourself as the gatekeeper of power in Wandsworth. Are you expecting a few nice lunches out of this? Are you expecting to get the VIP treatment?
I've made very clear, I mean, I've been the councillor for 32 years. I've got no ambitions or personal things left, so I won't be accepting a seat in the cabinet or anything of that nature. But on the other hand, the way it's worked out, I have a duty to help Wandsworth to be as stable as it possibly can. As things look, since the Conservatives are the largest group, they're almost certainly going to form the administration, I would have thought. And I do have a potential role in just making sure that they can focus on governing rather than panicking to get every vote through and losing focus.
Malcolm, do you think this, in many ways, where your situation exemplifies where we are in British politics? The landscape has been fractured, the landscape has been reset, we have precarious balances of power, and then independent councillors like yourselves who've ploughed your own furrow become very important.
Well, oddly, Wandsworth and Westminster last night were very atypical. Westminster is a complete two-party state. Wandsworth only has one councillor, me, who's not part of the two major parties. So we were very strange in not fracturing and ending up with 4 or 5 groups on the council. It's just one of these sheer flukes that it happened to balance out 29-28. Had 16 votes gone the other way in one ward, it would have been Labour who were on 29. It's one of these, as I say, just a very unlikely fluke, which has resulted in me being catapulted into a position that I didn't want, that I don't particularly like, but which I'll do to the best of my ability.
Well, Malcolm Grimston, you were hoping there to put your clogs up, have a nice retirement, perhaps do a bit of gardening. I'm afraid, my old son, you're right back in the bear pit. You're finding yourself one of the balances of power. This is what I love about politics, these idiosyncratic stories. Malcolm Grimston, enjoy the weekend. I suspect you might need the rest. Thank you very much there. Successfully re-elected on Wandsworth Borough Council, Malcolm Grimston. Gentlemen, what a fascinating story. The way that these yes. I know you were picking up this one earlier on. It suddenly fell the way that he finds himself a kingmaker.
I'm just looking forward to visiting Grimston Gardens in Wandsworth, walking down Malcolm High Street, and perhaps turning to the Malcolm Grimston Airport that I'm sure will soon be opening. I mean,
the heliport.
Yes, right, yes, because they do have several of them.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Nigel Nelson, but isn't it just what a night? And that I think is as we approach the end of this show, towards the hour. What a magnificent way to end, in a way. It's always very, very, very difficult when you do. I know that Chris Hope didn't have a shred of sympathy for Eleanor Morgan and well, she was terrible. She deserved to get kicked out.
I was just balancing your coverage, Martin. You were so gushing.
I was trying to just have a shred of humanity.
No.
And then we have Malcolm.
I feel sorry for her, of course. It is a human thing, and people's careers, they are doing public service. If it's rejected by the electorate is hard, of course, I get that. And, of course, you've experienced it when you were MEP.
And so is my wife. That's why.
And so is your wife, okay.
Yeah. But on a serious point, Sir Keir Starmer is going to attempt to relax at Chequers. How do you relax if you're this Prime Minister? I mean, the voices are growing during live TV interviews, the MPs proud, saying you've got to go.
You can relax. The small print of these MPs saying you must go are, unless you change direction and deliver change fast by the next election, which actually is 12 months away, the locals next year are bigger than this year. That's what the new deadline is for him, and that's why Monday is so important, and that's why he'll get through it. I can't see a candidate standing against him who can beat him, so I think he'll do it, but the pressure's on him now to how do I change?
And one other thing, Martin, that's important to remember is that it may not be that the Labour Party's problem is the unpopularity of Keir Starmer. It may be that it's the unpopularity of the Labour Party.
Yes.
And that a new leader, the historical record shows if you switch to a new leader, it doesn't actually necessarily make things better.
Claire Fox was like tweeting away at me angry in the night. She was like saying, it's not about Keir Starmer, you're missing the point. Last night's vote was the public rejecting the entire political status quo, however you chose to change. It's the two-party system.
It's because they said change, Martin, and nothing has changed. And people are sick and tired of the main parties saying one thing and doing something else, and it's happened to Labour, but in short order. The Tories did 14 years of saying they'd cut net migration and didn't, through 5 elections.
Yeah, total and utter tin-eared to the big issues. North of the border, it's still all happening. Let's go now to GBNews' Scotland reporter Tony Maguire, who joins us live from Glasgow. Tony, what's the latest? It's been bedlam in Wales, it's been bedlam in the south of England, it's been bedlam in the north of England. Is it also bedlam north of the border?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, bedlam is on a bit of hiatus just now. What we're looking at when we're seeing that map, we're seeing something that's all too familiar. We're seeing, of course, the blue wall around the borders, as we've kind of come used to, but the majority of Scotland's votes have come in, and the constituency votes have mostly remained with SNP. But, I mean, the figures on the day are interesting. You know, SNP riding high, seemingly, in various press interviews. They're 4 seats down at the minute. Well, of course, Greens and Labour are both up 2 seats. Now, the smaller parties obviously expected to pick up a significant number of seats in the regional votes. We're kind of closing in now. The Highlands still have a number of constituencies to declare, but here now closer to home in Glasgow, we still have one in the greater Glasgow area to declare Uddingston and Bells Hill, and another one is Dumbarton as it is for the Scottish election. That is the constituency held since 1999 by Scottish Labour Deputy Leader Jackie Baillie. Now, there is talk of the town that is actually going to go to the SNP, and that actually Jackie Baillie might well be fighting for second place on that with the Reform candidate there. That one is still to be called. We don't have a full picture of what Scotland looks like quite yet, but really Reform, the only of the major parties, if you like, if we're counting them as such, not to have points on the board at the constituency level. We really thought that they stood a big chance up in Banff and Buchan, up on the northeast of Scotland, but it looks like they were pipped at the post by the SNP by just 250 votes. All across Scotland, we have seen a sharp rise in those spoilt ballots that we were talking about earlier. I think the scunner factor has really taken a hold of Scots during this election. I think we've seen, even the turnouts drop. I think 5 years ago the turnout was mid-60s, where now we're looking at kind of mid-50s for a national average, and actually a lot of constituencies falling below the 50% mark. I think that same picture that is actually being shown down in England, well, there's not as much turquoise on our map here. I think the same feelings from the electorate are certainly filtering through north of the border as well. But, you know, looking at that map, slightly disappointing just now, nothing huge to talk about. 2 new Green seats in both Glasgow and 1 in Edinburgh as well. So let's just see how these regional seats shake out, because then we'll have a real picture with what the Scottish Parliament will look like for the next 5 years.
Magnificent. Thanks for all your efforts today. You've been superb. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the studio. There's a major update on the situation in Wales. Tom Howard, it looks like there could be a coalition of chaos incoming.
Yes, just on some quick maths. The Plaid Cymru is on 37 seats. There are still 8 seats left. No, sorry, there are still 12 seats left to declare. And you need 49 seats for a majority. So Plaid would need 13... Plaid would need 12 seats, and there are 12 seats to declare. Plaid would need to win every single seat, which unless they have 90+% of the votes in both of these constituencies, they're not going to do.
So what that means is something that Martin Baxter has been predicting for a long time. I think us on this show have been predicting for a long time. Plaid Cymru locking out reform and doing a deal with somebody else to deny Nigel Farage's men.
That's true. However, it's unlikely reform would be in pole position to form a government. While Plaid is on currently 37, reform is on 30. Now, they could pick up maybe at most 6 more seats, probably more likely 4 more seats. They will be a very strong second in Wales, but it is now looking impossible for reform to form a government in Wales. It will likely be Plaid doing a deal with Labour. That, to me, seems the simplest way they get to that magic 49 seats for majority. Although, if Plaid underperform in these 2 elections, it's possible they might need another party too.
And Chris Hope, Lee Anderson admitted it reluctantly to you, but it's something actually which privately a lot of people in Reform have been saying for a long time. That they didn't want to win in Wales. No. Wales is the basket case. You know, the NHS is on its knees, education is on its knees, they're practically bankrupt. Is it not a better look, a better move potentially for Nigel Farage's outfit to let a coalition of the left fail, run the country into the ground? If that's what they could pull a miracle, they could turn Wales around, and actually sitting this one out and being noisy, effective opposition might be a better place to be.
They also get a lot of money as the main opposition, a lot of research money to build a policy platform. That's not talked about. It's over £1 million, I think. If you get maybe 20 or so MSs, we'll see how many they get. So there's money going towards this party. It's growing in importance and its own value. It's all about, as it always has been, a vehicle for Nigel Farage to become Prime Minister, and they're clearing that hurdle towards the next goal, and we know that's what was talked about by Steve Reid earlier. I should tell you, by the way, Liz Kendall, she's the 3rd cabinet minister, just saying moments ago that the PM is not going to go, and he's not going to set a timetable. People will want us to focus on the jobs and their future, not our jobs and our future.
OK, Nigel Nelson, we've got a quick minute left. Final comment to you. It's been a nightmare on Downing Street. How long can this zombie parliament limp on? Surely Keir Starmer's got to go.
Keir Starmer will only go if the cabinet get together and go en masse and say to him, it's over. Forget about timetables. No Prime Minister can ever do that because they're a lame duck during the timetable time. So on that it has to be the cabinet.
Chris Hope, final word to you. Surely the party is over for Keir Starmer.
I'm not sure it is. I think that he has got a chance on Monday with a major speech. The main critics, to forget the left who are saying timetable, that won't happen. Unicorns. They are saying change direction, deliver change, or you can't lead the party into the next election, and that's what Monday is all about. I think it's a caveated warning to him, but the PM Martin has got to listen. If he doesn't listen, it is over. OK, thank you very much indeed, Chris Hope. You've been magnificent. You're doing an election special, I believe, tonight, 7 till 9. Tune in, everybody, because Nigel Farage should be on it talking to us.
And there's going to be a full set of results coming in. Nigel Nelson, you've been magnificent. Thank you very, very much for your contribution as ever. And Martin Baxter, genuinely appreciate what you've done. Great data. You're an excellent contributor, and you were the first person to call that rout last night. And by Jove, what a rout it turned out to be. Now, let's now go to GB News' Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood, with all the scores on the doors. Tom, what's the latest?
Almost all the scores on the doors, Martin. Just one constituency left to go in Wales. Yes, 90 out of those 96 Welsh seats have now been declared. And it is a sea of turquoise and dark green for Plaid Cymru and for Reform. These are the two standout parties. Frankly, everyone else in this race is an also-ran. I'll give you the numbers now. Currently, Plaid is on 39. That means even if they were to win the final 6 seats, they would not get to that crucial 49 seat needed for a majority. So let's also look at where Reform are. Currently on 32. There is no mathematical way Reform can come first in Wales now. But my goodness me, they have had an incredibly respectable second place in Wales. The also-rans, frankly, all in single digits as we currently speak. Labour on 9, the Conservatives on 7, the Greens on 2, and the Lib Dems on a lonely 1 member of the Senedd. One more constituency to go. Things could change, but not significantly. Let's move on to Scotland, where those constituency results have been coming through thick and fast. And it's an interesting picture because the Labour Party amongst these constituencies have actually had 2 gains, both from the SNP, one up here in the Highlands and Islands and one there in the south of Edinburgh. Now, these are a slightly misleading set of electoral results because ultimately these will all be balanced out by the additional members that are given on the party lists. Only once all of the constituency seats are apportioned do we then get the lists. That's why we can see no turquoise for Reform yet on this list. So these numbers are very, very misleading given the huge dominance that the SNP has in constituencies. They will not, by the apportioned to Hont method of proportional representation, win many of the list votes here in Scotland. However, it's worth noting the Tories have been winning down there in the borders, as they usually do, up here in Aberdeenshire. Worth noting also that Stephen Flynn, the SNP Westminster leader for that party, has now come to Holyrood. He has won his Aberdeen seat and will be likely causing a by-election in Scotland. Let's just turn to England very quickly because we have a lot of results coming in, again, thick and fast. You'll see lots of black on this map of the county councils, of the district, borough and unitary authorities as well. Black on this map means no overall control. That is a story that we are consistently seeing here, where Reform is winning significant numbers of seats, but in many of these councils, only a third of the seats are up for offer, and therefore we get lots of no overall control. Very, very strong results from Reform up in the northeast and across Greater Manchester as well. Lots of no overall control, mainly as a result of Reform gains. In Essex, they have dominated as well. It's worth noting up here in Norfolk, on the county council side of things, there were 10 seats that were standing for Rupert Lowe's Great Yarmouth First party. He stood just 10 candidates, so not enough to win the council or anything like that, but he did win all 10 of them. So that is something to note there. In London, we're still seeing the counts come through. Whether the Greens will do as well as they've done in Hackney, where they won the borough mayoralty, remains to be seen. Lots of these inner London constituencies still to come. The Tories doing perhaps a little better than expected here, especially in Westminster. Lots more still to come.